This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's try again. I'd like to call our September 9, 2021 meeting of the Architecture Review Board to order. I'm Jamie Millward, Chairman of the Architecture Review Board. I think right now, Vice Chairman Steve Law is present and Commissioner Tom Starkowitz is there. John Zabel is not present now, but I assume is going to be joining us. So our first order of business is approval of the minutes for the August 12th, 2021 ARB meeting. Is there any comments from commissioners? Steve?
No comments, Jamie.
Tom?
No comments, Jamie.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the August minutes as recorded.
Second?
Second.
Steve Law, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting minutes approved unanimously. Next on the agenda, petition of 946 Ferry Boulevard, review of petition to zoning commission by Bal Harbor LLC and Bal Harbor 2 LLC for constructing a 4-story, 16,000 square foot per floor multifamily building. I'm not sure who's taking the stage here, but why don't you guys take it away?
This is Paul Sobel. I represent the applicant, and we have with us tonight Anthony Salsi. He's a principal. I'm not sure if Tony Nazzaro is on yet. He is a principal. We have John Cruitt, the project architect, and David Bjorklund, the project engineer. So I can start by turning it over to either Dave Bjorklund to review the site plan or John Cruitt to review the architecturals, whichever is the pleasure of the commission or the board.
Either or, up to you guys, however you'd like to proceed.
Hey, Dave, how about if you begin with the site plan?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make Dave the presenter. Dave, do you have drawings on your screen, or do you want me to share my screen?
If you could share your screen, that would be preferable.
Okay, 1 second.
I think Smitha has the S1 layout. The
That would be, S1 would be the one that I would want to work from.
and she also has the landscape plan.
Okay.
So which one do you want me to open here? S1 layout?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sure most of the members, my name is Dave Bjorklund. I'm president of the firm of Spath Bjorklund Associates, and we have offices in Monroe. And we are the civil site consultants on this proposed development. We're working in coordination with Davison Environmental with regards to the tidal wetlands that are located on site. And we're working with Environmental Land Solutions, Matt Pop, who has done the landscape design. I think everybody's familiar with the site. This is the site of the River Bistro restaurant. And then there is a large parking area that is associated with the...
Just 1 second. For the record, I want to announce that committee member John Zabel has arrived. Because when we are voting, I want to be very sure that all members had the same information to vote from.
Okay.
All right, you can continue now.
Right. The proposal here is to maintain the existing restaurant as it is today in its current location. And then there's a large parking area which was developed years ago to the east of the existing restaurant. And the proposal is to construct the apartment building on that existing paved area. We're not encroaching off of that paved area. There's also some waterfront improvements. There's a boardwalk that runs along the river and access to a dock that runs down to the river that will provide public access to the river. In the previous approval of the restaurant, there were to be 8 public parking spaces that were designated for public use and access of the public to the water. This plan does recognize that proposal, and those parking spaces are located on the southeast side. They're located, you can see them, they're just southeast of the proposed restaurant. The access to the Ferry Boulevard, Barnum Avenue cutoff is the same. We're not proposing to fill any of the tidal wetlands. We've recognized the mean high water mark. We have a very detailed stormwater detention plan that is part of the proposal that complies with DEP requirements with regards to detention and water quality. So if you visit the site today and you see the tidal wetlands that are to the south of the existing pave area, there's going to be no change in those. We are proposing to have parking under the building, which I'll let John Cruitt get into. This is going to be served by existing sanitary sewers that are on the site and public water. That's basically a rundown of the site. I'll turn it over to John now so he can talk about what I think is probably more important to the ARB is the building itself. John?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Physically, the proposed project is a 4-story, has 16,000 square foot per floor.
Excuse me, John, for one moment.
Excuse me?
Which drawings or set of drawings would you like to have on the screen when you begin your presentation?
The major difference between what was submitted to the Architectural Review Board and what I have is that I actually have catalog cuts of some of the materials that I propose to use. How important that is, we'll just maybe one by ear.
So just for your information, Susmitha now has the August 27 set up on the screen, and that includes
the latest
roof plan.
Set of drawings, and I am very pleased and gratified to hear that, because one of the principal exhibits, which wasn't submitted earlier, was the roof plan. The roof plan has some importance because we do propose to locate outdoor sections of mini splits on the roof, but I'll try to get into that particular aspect of the design a little bit later. What I want to try to do is I want to try to go over the design, the massing, the elevations, what I propose to use for the various materials, the philosophy that is the backbone of this design, and other factors. So if I may, if you have a picture of the perspective, if you could put that up, that would be appreciated.
Susmitha, would you be able to put up the color rendering?
Yeah, can't you see it?
There it is.
Because
Excellent, that's perfect. Yeah, it's just like my color rendering, so that's just fine. The reason for that is it makes a good introduction to what I propose. The proposed project is a 4-story, 16,000 square foot per floor, multifamily building with a mix of studio 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. One of the aspects of this particular project is I wanted the building to be elevated for a couple of reasons. One, because it's in a flood zone, and the flood zone allows us to park underneath the building and have our main entrance at that level. So the building is basically elevated some 12 feet above the existing grade. And this affords other opportunities. And the other opportunities it affords, the elevation that you see is the southward facing view. And they have a very clear view of the lower Housatonic River and also Long Island Sound. Now, there's an equal number of apartments on the north side, and what they will view, because they are elevated enough, they will view the upriver section of the Housatonic River, along with the various marinas. They will have a pretty clear view of that. So basically, all of the units have waterfront views. One of the design features that I wanted to put in this project was I wanted to pay attention to the balcony rails. I discussed this with the ownership team, and I wanted to go with cable rails because I thought that cable rails kind of had a very nautical theme about them. And so they agreed, and we went with the cable rails. The other design feature that is interesting to this building is the way that we handled the aesthetic to the parking garage, the lower level parking. There's about 28 spaces in there, and what we have are open archways, and I wanted to try to evoke a boathouse feel in the first floor, the lower level. And this is why I designed it the way I did. Now, into the color selections. And I was in consultation with the development team's various consultants, design consultants regarding the color theme, the color scheme and the material scheme. And what I wanted to do here was try to get something that also evoked the nautical theme. So you have, for instance, a random cut straight edge shingle, which is principally used on the second and third floors. On the fourth floor, we have a 6-inch exposure clapboard profile. And we also use a clapboard profile in a different color for the balcony walls. And I have, as a part of my presentation, a color schedule. Well, I have it on mine anyway, where we use various materials. The fiber cement siding that appears to be a very light gray is in fact based on James Hardy's Arctic White. The clapboard profile on the first floor, in order to be even more nautical, is based on James Hardy's Light Mist. The fiber cement siding, the clapboard profile that's used in the recess and the balconies, is based upon James Hardy's Booth Bay Blue. And the random cut straight edge shingles that kind of evoke a lot of structures that are traditional and germane to New England shores. Those are random cut straight edge, 7-inch exposure, James Hardy Arctic White. The synthetic stucco ephes that's used in the bulkhead on the first floor, which you can kind of see in the rendering, that is a color match to James Hardy's Light Mist. These days, that's quite easy to do. There is also a stone veneer used in the center portion and also the two end walls. And what that is an ashlar stone pattern. We haven't really agreed as to the final color or pattern. I started to suggest Adirondack snowfall, but then again, I had second thoughts and I wanted to go with something that had a bit more warmth to it. So that is kind of, again, final decision on that is pending. The windows, they are vinyl windows. The patio doors are vinyl sash, and those are a black colored sash. And basically, that is it as far as the exterior materials. The roof is a flat roof. It has a parapet that is designed such that it can easily conceal the outdoor sections. We expect that we're going to use mini split systems to heat and to cool these apartments. Very energy efficient solution. And it allows us also to locate the outdoor section mini splits on the roof. We can set them back at least 10 feet from the edge of the roof, such that they are not visible from ground level, and they also won't be visible from Washington Avenue as well. So that basically is, in a nutshell, my presentation. Here, of course, to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Amy, do you
so
want me to stop sharing?
Attorney Sobel, is that the end of the presentation? Are we on to questions and commentary from the commission?
If the commission would like to view the architecturals, they're on the set of online documents, and there is a landscaping plan there as well.
Yeah, I think we all have hard copies of those as well, at least I do. So maybe could you? I know we often get into this. Could someone, perhaps it's Dave Bjorklund, can comment on the landscaping plan? I see it was prepared by someone else, but I'm not sure that they're present.
Yeah, this is Dave Bjorklund. You're correct, Mr. Chairman. The landscape plan was prepared by ELS, Matt Pop, who worked with us on this plan. I'm not sure I can answer any specific questions. If there are any, I'll try, but there's quite an extensive plant list. The planting is, a lot of it is focused to create a buffer area between the existing development, the existing paved area, and the tidal wetlands and the Housatonic River, and the existing Broadwalk. There are plantings that are proposed around the building and around the existing parking area that exists currently for the existing restaurant building. There will be a definite enhancement of landscaping, especially to the rear of the building. We're limited as to what we can do in the front of the existing restaurant building, because when you look at the plan, the most of that is owned by the state of Connecticut. It's part of the right of way for Washington. So.
Okay, thank you. And then one more thing that may just answer a question before they're asked. And I see you have, it's a little confusing. I see you have what looks to be a lighting plan. I'm not sure who might speak to that, both site lighting and building lighting, but perhaps you have some information about that.
So Tony DeZardo is not on right now. I just attempted to call him. I don't know if he is having a trouble connecting. You might want to try Anthony.
Yeah,
I just got off the phone with him 15, 20 minutes ago. He was gonna get right on.
So we also have cut sheets for the fixtures. I know what I've discussed with Anthony Nazzardo, and that these are all LED fixtures that have no spill. The light can be directed, and you'll see from that lighting drawing, I guess it's kind of small on the screen. I'm trying to call it up on my screen from the town's website, that the foot candles really drop off around the perimeter of the property, so there's no spill. I imagine the commission may be familiar with this type of lighting fixture now, where it doesn't really radiate above, and it preserves dark sky, and it just illuminates the intended space with no spill.
Hey, Tone, we're on with the architectural review committee. Just wondering.
Okay.
In addition to the lighting drawing, there are cut sheets for the lighting on the town's website.
Right. I see the pole. I see that I have copies of the site like parking lot lighting, which, and I guess what I'm trying to understand where the lampposts are. I can't quite make that out on.
So getting back to the lighting plan, the drawing, there are little rectangles, and the rectangles are either blue or red or purple or dark blue, and the type of fixture for each is described in the schedule there.
Okay, I see it.
So those are the LED ARL2, and I think UNV is universal voltage, so that they take, I think, a voltage input of, and Tony, I can supply correct information if I'm incorrect, but I believe they take voltage inputs between 100 volts and 266, something like that. I don't know, but they can be I believe that the wattage on them may be able to be adjusted, but they're all specified as 100 watts on that schedule.
Okay. So if that's good that you kind of generally cover that, and it may come up further in commentary from the commission. So if you're all set, I'm gonna go around the room to our commissioners one at a time and for their commentary and questions. If you're all set.
We are.
Okay. All right. So then I will start. Tom Sarkowitz, some comments on this project, please.
Tom Sharkwitz, board member. I would just like to ask a question to the presentation, that the architect submitting this particular project is the same architect that did Riverside Bistro a number of years ago. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And how is this housing development being marketed? Is this more of a luxury development or a mid-level or more of a affordable housing development? How do you envision this?
Anthony?
Yeah, it is pretty much along the same lines of Ferry Boulevard Plaza. The floor plans are the same for the studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, but most of our units have a balcony except for the studios. And every unit does have a view of the water, either looking south or north. The price point will be a little higher because of the location, and there is no affordable component. But the price point now is averaging about $240 a square foot at Ferry Boulevard. We see our average price point here at around $260, $265 a square foot.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with the material selection. And I know there's a document submitted by the John Crua office that lists the materials as all fiber cement siding by James Hardy. But then on the exterior materials legend of the architectural set, there's an option between vinyl or fiber cement siding. And I'd just like to reiterate that our design guidelines advise against vinyl siding.
Vinyl siding is not going to exist. That should have been taken off of the drawings.
Okay, just confirming.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about the fiber cement siding, I do think that in all fairness, it is a more environmentally responsible material. It's a more sustainable material, and certainly it would be appropriate for this project.
Oh, I agree. Thank you. My main problem with the materials is that I like the fiber cement, I like the shingles, I like the clapboard, and I like the colors that you selected. I think it all goes with your nautical theme. However, I don't think the stonework is that successful. I'll say the stonework and the stucco if we're referencing the 3D rendering that you provided. I think it's not the best choice to have stucco at all in the project if it can be avoided. And I especially am not thrilled about having stucco on, the two, I guess, main facades of the building, and then what looks to be a different siding on the shorter sides of the building. If you're going to do stucco or a different material, I would make it all four sides rather than breaking it up like that. And I'd also like to comment that I don't think the stonework is that successful, even though I don't have a problem with the choices you've provided for the stonework, namely above the main entrances where it turns the corner, and the nature of the products you selected. You really can't turn the corner successfully without corner boards, which just makes the material look, in my opinion, a bit silly.
I think the corner boards are not intended to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, the stone veneer would wrap the corner as just any other stone veneer, as being contiguous across the face, and then 90-degree turn. I don't think that corner board will exist during the design phase.
It probably won't. I'm inclined to agree with that.
What other material would you prefer in lieu of the stone?
I actually don't mind the stone. It's the stucco that I have a problem with. And I was going to suggest that instead of stucco, you move the stonework down to the first floor and have a more rusticated base, which would lend credence to your boathouse parking garage idea. However, if you're going to get rid of, or if the corner boards on the stone are not meant to be there, then I'm okay with the stone as is. Just the stucco looks a bit silly, especially it broken up on each side of the building. But moving on to the planting plan you have. This rendering also shows a lot of nice flowering bushes in front of the main entrances to your building, but I don't see that anywhere on the landscaping plan. Can you speak to that?
Well, for one thing, I would or the original intent was to try to have some plant, a 5-foot planting area where we could put flower shrubs. The other thing, even though I'm trying to be as authentic as possible with this particular rendering, a little bit of artistic license to enhance the presentation. If it were up to me, I would have preferred to see some low-rise shrub plantings in that area. And, this was one of the first times that I've actually seen the landscape plan and was even able to review it. So if the board thinks that they would like to see that, then the team would certainly seriously consider it.
Okay, I think it's really going to help enhance your project and enhance the marketability of your project, because right now the new building sits just in a sea of parking, and I understand the necessity for the parking, but it is a very manufactured and hard environment that we're creating here. And if we could soften up right to the building with some planting, I think that would really improve the project.
That's actually on my to-do list. Foundation plantings around the perimeter of the building.
Great, glad to hear it. I have some other stuff to speak on, but I'll let other board members go so I don't take up all the talking points. Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, John Zabel.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for my delay. I'm doing some work on our home office and had trouble putting the computers back together. So I apologize for my delay in joining. Again, thanks for your presentation. It was very complete, and we do have the materials. So if you see me leafing through, I have them all spread out all over my desk. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I didn't have any order in which I had made my comments and jotted them down. I do see, because of some grade and elevation changes that are going to be required on the site in order to fit the building in, there are several areas where there's going to be retainage, and you're going to be putting in retaining walls. Again, is there any comment as to how the retaining walls are going to be constructed, what they're going to be constructed in, how they will work in the nature of the whole project? Again, with hearing that there's a nautical theme, I think I had the idea from looking at it. That's where this was going to be going. But if anybody could speak to kind of the retaining walls that'll be used and the construction materials of those.
It's going to be a key lock type retaining wall. It almost looks like a split face concrete block on the face of it, with pea gravel and drainage behind the wall.
Okay, yeah, just if it could be less industrial, I think, because the whole look of the project, and like Tom said, we're kind of in a pavement jungle here because of its current use and then the proposed plan. If we could add some character to that, just to enhance the aesthetics of this.
If you think it's going to be concrete, now that's out. It's going to be more of a stony type veneer on the face of the block itself.
Okay. All right. I think Dave Bjorklund, when he was speaking of the planting plan, again, having not designed it though, one thing that did catch my eye is that is going to be a huge grass area that will be incorporated. Again, understand the building and elevations. I was trying to figure out how that north facing elevations will get a full view even on the second floor, the actual livable floor. But nevertheless, a lot of their views, if not looking at the water, is going to be at that slope. Understanding it is DOT right, much of us who are homeowners do things in our right of way. Again, not major, but that's one area I saw that I know you guys had some non-mow grass planted in there. If reconsideration could be to possibly sprucing up that hill slope, because it will be visible from other portions of the property, people visiting the restaurant, people living in this apartment complex. So just wondered if any consideration could be given to doing something on that slope. Maybe not all the way up, understanding that it is the right of the state of Connecticut, but just something to enhance the aesthetics of kind of that big blank canvas of grass. Again, we focused a lot on the building, and Tom had made some comments. The one question I had is, and I apologize, I joined a little late, but the siding types coming down the east and west sides, in terms of coloration, are the first two tiers from the fourth and then the second and third floor, although different materials, are those the same color?
Pardon me, what was the question? I apologize.
So understanding that you're using different materials on the east and west facades, are they the same color between the fourth floor and the second and third? From what I read from the material sheet, those would be the same color.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right.
Different type of material,
Just on
Central.
the three-dimensional rendering kind of threw my eye off that there appeared to be more shading on the fourth floor.
I think that because there's more of a linear effect.
Okay.
On the second and third floor, there shakes.
Yep. Two other things, and then I'll hand it off. I didn't see anywhere where the materials were considered for curbing and walkways. Again, a lot of parking, a lot of asphalt, a lot of walkable areas. Enhance the aesthetics on the ground. If someone could just speak to kind of those areas that'll be traversed by both the residents and folks presumably attending the restaurant.
Dave?
Yeah, the proposal for the curbing was to be asphalt curbing, would mimic what is currently around the existing restaurant. We hadn't considered any other materials, but the site will look very different, especially around the restaurant. There's two parking areas on the east and the west side of the restaurant where we're going to see the differences as you get behind the restaurant. The parking areas there are going to be more defined. There's going to be islands. There's a walkway that leads from Ferry Boulevard down, providing access to the waterfront. We have the 8 public parking spaces. So I think you're going to see a definite difference in the site. It is a sea of asphalt. It's there currently, and we're working within the limits of that and not expanding it. So
How about the sidewalk? That it looks like, at least from the I'm on the environmental land solutions. I know this is the landscape plan, but it shows quite a bit of sidewalk area, both in the front and the back, and then around both sides of the structure, which isn't shown in this three-dimensional view. Actually shown green like it would be grass, but what is that sidewalk material? Is that just standard concrete sidewalks?
I don't have the answer to that at my fingertips. I imagine that it's proposed to be, it'll be asphalt sidewalk. The majority of the sidewalk is incorporated into the site to provide public access. Not the sidewalk right around the building, but all the sidewalk from Ferry Boulevard down to the existing dock is there to, it enhances the development greatly. But the other thing is we're satisfying the public access requirement to provide access to the shoreline.
Yeah, I think I was speaking specifically to the new proposed building, what that was going to look like, how that would interface, especially in light of Commissioner Sarkowitz's comments regarding the stucco on that ground floor. If there was a thought of putting stone sidewalks or some sort of brick face sidewalks down around the building.
We were proposing with stamped concrete.
Okay. All right. that's it for now, Jamie. I also do have a couple more things, but if they don't come up, if you have a round two, I'd be more than happy to share.
Okay, thanks, John. Steve Law?
Yes, thanks, Jamie. I want to thank you guys for putting together a pretty comprehensive proposal. It's good to see some effort that went into this. A couple of the comments that Commissioner Sarkowitz and Commissioner Zabel mentioned, I'd like to just follow up on, is one of the things on my list, and was the stone veneer and the stucco. I don't have a problem with the stone veneer, but as Commissioner Sarkowitz said, I think it would, the overall aesthetic of the building would benefit if the whole lower level or the base, water table base was all stone around the full perimeter of the building. As we know, stucco can be subject to damage, and I don't really necessarily have a problem if the stucco were up high. I think there's a lot of material changes going on. I do have a concern about, I guess, the transition between the materials and creating what looks like a lot of corner board. So I just want to kind of re-emphasize that. The other thing I was looking at is the sidewalls of the balcony. I'm just wondering, it looks like clapboard. It looks like the hardy plank clapboard. I'm wondering if it wouldn't benefit both the residents and the articulation of the building if those sidewalls were opened up a little bit, just to maybe refine the look of it. There was a couple.
What are you thinking?
Well, maybe, either return the cable rail on the two return walls and just open up those sidewalls. I don't know if I don't know where the structure is, but it looks like those sidewalls of the flanking sidewalls on the balcony don't come all the way down to the ground anyway, right? Those are not there. Yeah.
It'd be a lot easier for us, but I think it's more secure for the tenant. And, sometimes you think about liability when you're designing these. This cable rail does provide us with good visibility. We had actually thought about going with a glass rail. The reason why we stayed away from the glass rail is because of the maintenance, especially near the water. With the salt air beating up against the glass, it's always going to require some form of maintenance. So that's why we decided to go with the cable rails. But I would not feel comfortable from a liability standpoint to wrap the rails at 90 degrees on both sides. I like to have some security up there. Having those two wing walls, maybe it's not the most desirable, but it's the safest. And if I could just
address the wing walls, one of the things we seriously as designers, as we design and engineer this building, we have to bear in mind that we need as much structure as possible in these buildings such that we can resist the wind and seismic effects of this particular site. If I eliminate those sidewalls, which I strongly oppose, then I feel that I am weakening the structure. So, I don't want to do it for many reasons.
Yeah, point well taken, John. I understand. It's just as I'm going through I'm looking at the aesthetics. So the other, I think you mentioned.
Can I interrupt for a second to point out that Anthony
have,
Ricardo is on now. And if anyone has any questions about the lighting, Anthony can address them.
Yeah, let's stay on these wing walls. We have the same detail at Ferry Boulevard, except for the fact that 12 of the units have exterior closets. We don't have the room here for the exterior closets. It was actually a mistake. We were going to put the HVAC equipment at that location. As it turned out, we went with the mini split systems, and the HVAC equipment went to the roof. If I could just speak to the lower level stucco, about 25% of the way from the, I would say from the concrete slab to a point of about 2'6" up from the concrete slab, that's going to be a concrete block stub wall or a concrete wall. Yeah, it could be veneered with stone. And our thoughts on the stucco was to go with a hard coat system, which is a double mesh system. And yeah, it is a lot of maintenance at times, especially at the parking level. But what we typically do is double up on the mesh at those locations. There's a lot of different things you can do in terms of design with the stucco. And that's one of the reasons why we incorporated the arches into the lower elevation or lower level elevation, as to give it more character. If you take the total square footage of the exterior walls, we have about 30,000 square feet. Of the 30,000 square feet, only 5,000 square feet, including the perimeter soffit, or you want to call maybe cornice, is stucco. So, maybe 15%, maybe 20% of our total wall, not even 20% of the total wall area receives that stucco finish.
So Anthony, just in response, you say the 2'6" base, the water table is constructed of concrete block. So you're having a hard coat, you're having a real stucco plaster on that masonry, but the wall above that is a stud wall. So is that ephes or is that real stucco?
Yeah, so you have 2'6" up, then you have above that a metal framed, cold form framing with Den's glass attached to the cold form framing, and then the stucco attached to that. But the total wall area that receives stucco at the lower level is only a couple thousand square feet. So you have this stub concrete block wall or concrete wall that's going to receive a hard coat stucco. Then you have a sill that's on top of that concrete block wall or concrete wall. And then above that sill is your cold form framing and stucco. So it's not going to just be a flat surface. It's going to have details to it.
Okay, so just a few other comments, Jamie, and then I can pass it over. I see there on both north and south elevations, there's an entry canopy, I guess. Is that an awning? It looks like it appears to be an awning.
That's correct.
Yes.
And so there's not much detail in terms of how that's fabricated or the signage. We may want to just have a look at the signage. The other comment was, I think on that west elevation, John, I thought you said in the beginning that there was going to be stone on the two end east and west elevations, but maybe I misheard that.
No.
Okay.
No, oh yeah, there's stone on basically on the on either the north or the south elevation on the end walls. There's going to be stone, and that's properly shown on the elevation drawings.
Oh, on the end bays.
Right, on the end base,
Okay.
correct.
Well, again, like Commissioner Sarkowitz and Commissioner Zabel mentioned, I think keeping the material at the base consistent around the building would help. On that west elevation, I think there's an areaway in a door that comes out there, which is probably going to need some kind of protective cover over it. I don't any information there, but the other issue that Commissioner Zabel brought up was the grading. There is a kind of a significant grade as you move from the middle of the building to the west. There's an existing kind of a significant grade change there. So you mentioned those segmental retaining walls, Anthony. Is that, I didn't see that on the site plans. Was that?
I don't think it's been detailed yet.
Okay. Jamie, I'll come back to a couple other items if we want to just keep going.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, Jamie Millward, Chairman. So I have a few other items. So site planning wise, you know, we talk in general about this feeling like a sea of parking, and it is. And I understand there's requirements to that. I do see that you have provided more parking than is necessary, and I do see that there's, you know, I appreciate the fact that the new building and the parking doesn't exceed the existing parking lots that's there, but I'm guessing to meet the needs of the restaurant, there's a whole lot of new parking that's added up on the kind of the Western Danny's Drive-In end of the site. Is that, and I'm looking at what you submitted, a kind of an aerial of a Google map. There's a whole lot of new parking that's going in there that's green as of right now. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so, and then am I reading correctly that the 8 spots that are for public use are the ones to the south of the existing restaurant building? That's where those are?
Directly adjacent to the existing patio?
Correct, that's where the
No,
8.
excuse
No.
me, the public parking spaces are the ones at the directly south of the restaurant. So
Okay.
there's a walkway that comes in from what is Washington Avenue right there between the Danny's restaurant, the building, and the Danny's parking lot. That walkway loops around the side of the property, and then where it makes a sort of a right-hand turn to the northwest, that's where the parking spaces are.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm clear about which spaces. I thought it was the 8 spaces right next to what is a shed, an existing shed. Is that not the right?
No, that's, yeah.
That's not the right.
No, drop southeasterly, and they're the 8 spaces that are adjacent to the existing wetlands.
Okay, and then there is, you know, it's hard to follow this, but I guess there is direct access via walkways, not just walking across the parking lot, but the public who might park there has sidewalk access down to and access to the boardwalk and to the dock.
That's correct.
Yes, another access is in conjunction with the greenway. I think that the plan would be that people traveling the greenway could access the property from what is left of Washington Avenue. And that is actually a town road that splits the Danny's building and the Danny's parking lot. So they can bike through that or walk through that and then go down around the walkway. They can get to the boardwalk, and that's the access.
Okay, so I just want to stay on the parking a little bit more. So you have more spaces than you need. And I also, and this is going to be a question, because it's close, and this question for Susmitha potentially. And how close is this property to being in a TOD district?
not very close, but I think this is a good case for a TOD expansion because it is on a major transit route, Ferry
Right.
Boulevard. Mhm.
That's where I'm going with this. And so, you know, the parking regulations in the TOD are less stringent than they are, you know, from what you're showing. And I'm assuming that what you're showing is based on town requirements. And so I'd like you to, and this would be in conjunction with the town, I'd like to see you consider having this be, you know, perhaps built like a TOD project, and perhaps get some consideration from the town on the parking. And I'm not sure where there's, you know, exactly where there are, you know, perhaps potentially like bus stops and things like that. Exactly. I'm sure they're near the dock. I know there's one, you know, down where the new Chipotle is and everything. But that might go a long way towards kind of relieving the site of being fully and, you know, for the, other than the wetlands, kind of fully and totally developed in building and parking. So I think it would be good for you guys to kind of look into that, and perhaps it's something you can work with the town on. You
We'd be
mentioned,
amenable to that.
but I'm sorry, what was that?
I say we would be amenable to that.
Okay. The next thing is, again, and you know, I'm assuming this is all, the driveway around the building is two-way. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
Is
I
that
think
just
we have
one-way?
one-way traffic around the periphery.
It looks wide enough to be two-way, but maybe Dave Bjorklund can.
Yeah, it's two-way traffic in the rear of the building where we have double loaded parking spaces. And then when you get to the front of the building being that faces Washington and Route 1, that's a one-way scenario.
Because it looks, I mean, I'm looking at a parking space that might be, it's 18 or 20 feet. It looks like that driveway is 24 feet wide. Is that incorrect? Just looking at graphically that the driveway is much wider than the depth of the parking space.
That is correct.
So I guess my comment is, if it isn't one way, could it be again reconsidered to be one-way traffic, and therefore potentially eliminate some of the paving? I think that would be, you know, again, I'm just going for trying to minimize how much we have on the property in the way of hardscape, and I'm sure it's all collected, and you know.
Yeah, we have a DOT easement that has to be relocated. And you can see it within the footprint of the building. It's horseshoe shaped.
I'm sorry, I'm not following that. What was that?
There is a DOT easement to get trucks to the bridge to repair the bridge at any given moment. So there's an easement now that has to be relocated. So the intent is to relocate that easement down along through this path that's 24 feet wide.
Okay, if you're suggesting that's why it's 24 feet and it has to say that way, maybe that's the case.
Yeah, I believe so. So if you have a truck and a car trying to get into a space, we're gonna, you know, need that kind of area to accommodate that DOT easement.
Okay, well, I'll leave that up to you to kind of determine. I mean, access might be
Yeah,
not
do you see
often, and then maybe on an emergency basis or on a planned basis. So,
you see the dotted line that says AE?
I'm sorry?
You see the dotted line that says AE?
It runs that, the easement currently runs right through the building. We're proposing to put the building, and we have to work with DOT to relocate that easement to put it in front of the building. Depending upon what DOT's requirements are and the relocation of that easement, you know, that they're going to have some say in what the width of that driveway is.
Understood. And fair enough. Obviously, I'm not going to suggest that you can do that without their kind of approval. I'm heading back to the landscaping around the building. I understand and I believe that you would want to landscape around the building, but the way this is, the distances you have from southernmost point of the parking area adjacent to the wetland area to the northern side of the parking on the Barnum Avenue side, you know, those sidewalks on either side of the building look to me only to be 4 or 5 feet wide. And I'm not sure how you're really getting any significant space to landscape at all around the building with a configuration the way it is right now. But I think the project itself would be benefited. And I think Anthony, I think you touched on that. You realize that and you want to do that, but I'm not sure you're going to have the room to do that as it's presently configured. So I think it'd be worthwhile to look at all the possibilities, including one-way driveways or smaller smaller easements for the DOT, if that's acceptable. Okay, I want to comment quick on the sidewalks. I also agree. I think I heard stamp concrete, which I'm glad to hear that. I'm hoping those are not asphalt sidewalks there. I think it'll set up the building much nicer if those are not asphalt. The
concrete will be limited to the free of the building.
No affordable component of this. I know I'm aware of the town's desire to try and get to that 10% that the state is trying to get all the towns to be at, and I'm wondering, it's not necessarily an architectural discussion, but I guess, and you don't even have to comment on it, but I do think, and I know Smitha would probably concur that if some of these units, I can't remember the quantity of units, but if you could get some of these units to be affordable, it would certainly be in the town's interest. I will agree. I think a couple commissioners commented on the stone veneer. I would concur that I think that your money would be better spent doing the entire base of the building in stone and foregoing the stone that goes up to the 4th floor. If I'm reading that right, I think the whole overall look of that building with the kind of that stone base and the arches cut into it, I think would be aesthetically would be a nicer looking building that way. And I'm not sure you're getting paid for the stone up there on the 4th floor. So, but I understand where you're going with that. And then the last one is just a little particular thing, and it's just one of those things that bug me. I'm assuming you're indicating shutters on the windows. Is that correct?
Correct.
Am I reading that right? That those are shutters?
Yes.
Okay, so all I would ask is that if you could make sure that the shutters are half the size of the windows. It's not graphically showing that way. I just think, shutters in real life are meant to close over and protect the windows. And when you have a 3-foot wide window with 12-inch shutters on either side, I think it looks ridiculous. So
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's the intent.
Make the shutters look like that they're meant to be. That would be authentic and real. That would be great.
Yeah, you have a 2-bay or 3-bay window, that's not possible, but with a single window, that is the intent.
Yes, and I think even on a 3-bay, if you look at old houses, though, they still would take the width of one of the units of the 3-bay and make it half the width of that window, and that's kind of traditionally how it might be done.
I think you seriously have to consider the aesthetic effect and the balance between the window and the shutters. While I certainly will entertain the thought of trying to make the shutters for the single windows appear like they could be a permanent thing, I have to disagree with you on the double windows and the triple windows.
I
would eliminate them. I would suggest that you not have them on those windows then. I understand that, John, and I don't disagree with that, but perhaps those windows don't even get shutters then.
Actually, James, you're correct about that, because that's exactly what we did at Ferry Boulevard. We eliminated the shutters at those 3-bay and 2-bay windows and only put the shutters at the 1-bay windows, only on, I think, 12 or 16 windows, not the entire building. And, you know, we've could have done every single window, but we actually changed the elevation halfway through construction by incorporating shutters and a couple of panels below the window on the second floor, tying in, or the second and third floor, tying in the lower window to the upper window. And it kind of broke up the symmetry of the shakes and the linear type siding.
Mhm.
Okay,
Good.
thanks. All right, so those are my comments. Now, I feel like all the commissioners maybe wanted to circle back briefly if they had a couple other comments that didn't get covered. So I am going to go back around the room quickly and have each person kind of weigh in one more time. So Tom Sharkowitz, please.
Tom Sharkowitz, member. When I first started, I brought up the fact that it's the same architect who did Riverside Bistro. And I'd like to point out that Riverside Bistro has a very successful, very charming entrance to it. It has a low slope roof that sort of mimics what's going on at the gatehouses at the bridge. It has brackets holding up the eaves. It has an elliptical window. It's rather nice. It's really charming. And I would like to see that, if possible, echoed here at the main entrances to the building. I think that'll really tie the two properties together and really, you know, bring this complex home. And that would tie in with what other board members said about, you know, using the stone rather as the entire base and eliminating it from the upper floors. Would give you the opportunity to mimic what's going on at the Riverside Bistro entrance. But that's my point, Jamie, and I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tom. John Zabel.
Yep, just one other thing. It's oft overlooked in our meetings because again, everyone's focused on the structure, which again, that's the architecture. But again, I heard John mention several times the boathouse theme, and I could tell right away with those arches that you were going for. I really enjoyed that on the side facing the street. It looks like there's going to be faux, I'm assuming they're faux, garage type doors that'll look like they're actually part of a boathouse. I don't think we discussed that, but and further into that theme and the fact that we talked about TOD, we talked about studio spaces, talked about limiting cars, traffic, parking spots. Was there any consideration for bike racks or benches? Because again, there is going to be other mobility methods to bring people to this site. I heard Greenway mentioned. I heard traveling on bikes into the property. I didn't see anything depicted where there could be nice bike racks, either for the residents or those visiting residents, assumingly they'd come from in town. Was there any consideration to that? And also tying in the nautical theme. Also, along with the lighting, I appreciate the lighting, and I did look last night. I did a quick Google Street View, and it appears you're mimicking the existing lights that are there, but I was gonna ask if there was any thought of nautical theming or going a little less industrial. So I kind of just threw that out there, but anything relative to bike racks, benches, or anything else to improve the aesthetic, and again, it is a livable space.
Yeah, so what we did at Ferry Boulevard was that we added 2 bike racks, one at the upper elevation or first floor and one at the basement. So I think both bike racks are occupied. And we do have benches located in, I believe, 3 or 4 spots, Ferry Boulevard. So those are the kind of accessories or items that will be installed, but we're not placing them yet on the drawings. It's those type of items that will be placed in the most logical place as construction progresses.
And I appreciate that, Andy. It's just, it was more a point of consideration. I know, again, these are, a lot of this is conceptual, and those are small details, but as we've said for several other things in the project, those are the finishing touches that are going to take this from an asphalted area to, look, people are living here, people are enjoying the town of Stratford with its accessible waterfront right there. So I think that's really important. And then relative to the lights, is my assumption correct? We're just continuing on with the similar type lighting that exists at Riverview already?
Can I comment on that? This is Tony Nazardo.
Sure. Thanks, Tony.
I designed the lighting, and basically what I tried to do on the parking area is minimize the lights, the vision of the lights as much as I could. So the poles, I decided to make them black, the lights and the poles to make them black, only because I feel that black blends into the background. You don't see the lights. However, on the building itself, we are going to have some facade lighting that would be more nautical, and that's where we would do the decorative lighting as you would. We would certainly do them on the balconies and probably along the first floor of the perimeter. That has not been designed yet, and these are only conceptual drawings, but that would be the intention. I also want to bring up the fact of that the lighting I chose is completely controllable. Every fixture has its own control. So I would probably set the lighting that would be 100% during the restaurant and or the apartment activities. After that, those lights would automatically dim to 50% if that's what we decide. These fixtures are dimmable or step dimmable to 50%, 25%. We can go any percentage we want. So after, let's say the restaurant closes at 11 o'clock, those fixtures can dim down 50%. And every fixture will have a motion sensor, so that if someone happens to be driving in, those particular fixtures that they go by will go on. Obviously, that's for energy efficiency, and it also reduces the light. It's amazing that your eyes get used to 50% lighting very easily in the dark. So we've installed these fixtures at my facility at NNS Electric, and after a while you can't tell if they're at 50% or 100%. So I like these fixtures because of that efficiency. They're just and the other thing is these fixtures, the wattage is adjustable. The fixtures we're buying are 100 watts. We are dialing them down to 60 watts, and then obviously when they dim to 50%, they'll be 30 watts. They're dark sky compliant, and the cutoff is basically we could set the cutoff within a few feet, and there's no spillage onto the adjacent properties. That's basically what I say. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Great, thank you. The only thing I noticed is there's 3 different light types. I know they're all listed the same, but they're I think Paul had indicated that there were 3 different or 2 different colorations on the lighting plan.
No. Well, no. The light types that you're seeing are the various distributions of the lights. In other words, some of the lights are forward throw. Say those are the ones that would be near a property line, so that the light would go forward, and then the ones that are within the interior of the project would be more of a square throw, so that it lights evenly on all 4 sides. So that is the distribution, the light distribution pattern of each fixture.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, Jamie.
Thanks, John. Steve Law, you have anything else?
Yeah, Vice Chairman Steve Law. Tony, as long as we're talking about the lighting, and I appreciate all your expertise in the site lighting. I guess my only comment, it's hard to tell from the cut sheets what the pole heights would be, or I know, is there any way to get that same lamping, that same dimming capability and wattage capability in a little more traditional head?
What do you mean by traditional head?
This seems kind of very contemporary and
Are you saying more decorative?
yeah, more decorative.
Well, I'm sure you can get, we can get a more decorative, but Steve, my theory is I would like the lights to disappear. Those particular lights. Parking, I don't particularly like parking lot lights to be a focal point. I would like the lights on the building to be a focal point, and I'm sure we could do that, but on the general lighting in a parking lot, I'd like them to disappear. That's why I chose black.
Mm-hmm. Understood. What is the pole height?
18 feet. The poles we're using are 18-foot poles.
Yeah.
Can we bring that down a little lower, Tom? Is it possible?
Sure.
But do we need more?
I don't particularly think that 18 feet is tremendously high, but yeah, of course. What that does, obviously, is we have to take into account, the distribution, the hot spots and cold spots within. So if you bring the poles down, you might probably would be adding poles.
Okay,
If
but
you bring the height down, you'd be adding poles.
are we talking 18 feet from the top of the base to the top of the fixture, or 18
Yep.
feet from the
Yep.
grade to the top of the fixture?
18 feet from the base.
So
18-foot pole.
we're actually at about 20 to 22 feet.
Well, I don't think you're going to have that high of a base, but
Okay.
certainly a 2-foot base would be standard.
Yeah, so say 20 feet. What do we have at Ferry Boulevard? That one fixture that we have that lights up the whole parking lot. That's a 14, isn't it?
No, that's a 20-footer.
That's a 20 foot.
That's a 20-footer. These are actually 2 feet lower.
Okay.
Well, okay. I don't know if there's any other any other thoughts from the other commissioners, but James, just a couple other comments. I see, John, you've updated us with a roof plan, and I see roof drains. I assume those are all internal drains?
They're all internal drains, yes.
Okay. So will we need relief scuppers also in that parapet, or?
It's possible. Again, it's a design in progress. I know that we used scuppers at Ferry Boulevard at the Lofts project, but basically code is telling us that they want one primary drain and one secondary drain. And I'm not really totally convinced that scuppers are absolutely necessary as a secondary drain. So I would kind of defer to what code requires and provide that in my final design.
Okay, yeah, if it turns out that scuppers are required, then just as long as we're cognizant and place those accordingly.
Sure, they're usually placed in very close proximity to the primary perimeter drains.
Yep. One other question, Jamie, is there a transformer? I didn't see transformer anywhere on the site plan. Did I miss it?
I think the transformer is located near the existing restaurant.
You know, I thought, this is Tony, I thought we did put, Dave, if I'm not correct, I think we did put a proposed location for a transformer.
I know we're always under tight restrictions from the utilities, but we like to keep them in discrete places if we can.
No, absolutely.
That's all I had, Jamie.
Okay, thanks, Steve. You know, I think we've hit on everything. I don't need to reiterate anything else. So, you know, if there's not any further presentation from the applicant, I think that we can close on this, and I think Smith, maybe chime in here. Are we gonna? I think we're gonna make recommendations after each application, correct? We haven't had many multiple applications before.
Yes.
And since, especially now that we're all remote, this is not the easiest, I was writing some notes about my own commentary, but now we have to try and come up with a list of kind of our recommendations. And I'm almost feeling like maybe we go around the room and just everyone quickly, this has been pretty lengthy, kind of put the bullet points in there from your commentary that you'd like to see as part of our recommendation here. And then we compile those, Eileen will be jotting this down. We compile those into a comprehensive list. Susmitha?
I suggest you make a motion first and list your recommendations. And as you speak, if the other members have noticed that their concerns were already addressed in your list, then maybe they can eliminate that portion in their list and add to your list. And then finally, after you do the whole round, you can take a vote and say all yays or nays.
Okay, that's fine. So do I have a recommendation from the floor from a commissioner?
John Zabel, Commissioner. I vote we recommend with a favorable recommendation to the Zoning Commission to approve this application. I guess I'll just carry on, Jamie, with the following considerations be made before the final set of plans. When considering construction of retaining walls of the property, consider some sort of veneer to avoid a concrete industrial type look, considering there are several retaining wall locations on the property. Although a DOT right-of-way, consider plantings, at least on a portion of the hill slope along Housatonic Ave to break up that area. Give serious consideration, and it was understood by the applicant to include bike racks and benches, and if continuing with the nautical nature, incorporate that when including those. Consider materials for at least walkways around the building to be in some stamped form of concrete, potentially, rather than just a standard concrete or asphalt sidewalk. And that's it for me. So
Okay, thanks, John. So I'll say that I agree with those, and I'm going to add these points to what John has said, and that's that. I'd like the applicant to pursue this development as a TOD development with the town in order to potentially minimize the parking and the overall asphalt on the property. I'd like them to consider the driveway layout, one-way versus two-way on the property, again, to minimize asphalt and allow them to potentially get landscaping around the foundation of the building. I would like to have them consider an affordable component to the project. I would like them to consider the where they apply the stone veneer on the building. I believe putting it around the base of the whole first floor of the building would be preferable. Even if that meant substituting it out and not utilizing it up high on the building facade and up in the second, third, and fourth floors as shown. I'd like to make sure that the shutters where utilized are sized to be appropriately for half the size of the windows that they're adjacent to. I wrote this one down. This is Tom's point. I agree. I'd like to see the entrance points be accentuated and pick up on the design that is already in place at the existing restaurant to kind of give a little cohesiveness to the property as a whole. Yeah, so there's my ads. So there might be, I'm sure there are a couple more, but Tom and Steve?
Tom Sharkwitz, board member. I agree with all the points made, and all of my concerns have already been addressed.
Steve Law, you have anything more to add to that list?
Yes, I agree with putting forth a recommendation with all the comments from the other commissioners. Also, I think we may just want to consider incorporating either concrete or other curvings other than asphalt. And just to be considerate of transformer location. And I think all those other comments have been included. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, so Smith, maybe chime in here a little bit. Do we, we just kind of went through a pretty, kind of a lengthy list. I think we're all comfortable. Do we have to have that recited to be able to vote on this, or can we?
You can say, if we all agree on these conditions that we just mentioned, can I have a vote? And
Okay, so that being said, if
Susmitha,
yeah,
excuse me. This is Aileen Marsh, recording secretary. One, is it allowable for the ARB to add one of the conditions to consider affordable housing?
it is not, but it's okay. They're just advisory only. So the
Okay.
zoning commission may choose to, not consider that and just look at the other comments that are given. But it doesn't hurt to express their opinions. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aileen. Okay, so that being said, do I have a second for the motion put forth by Commissioner Zibel for acceptance of this project?
I'd like to second Commissioner Zabel's motion.
All right, all in favor of the motion, including all the comments that were made, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone who was part of this. We appreciate a very good presentation, and I'm sure we'll see you again another time.
Your
Thank you.
comments have been very, very, they're constructive and well taken. I like you right there about the stone veneer at the lower elevation, and maybe just carry the siding up through the front entrance and on the east and west corners of the building instead of stone veneer.
Yes.
And I do like your idea about the TOD expansion. And a decorative fixture at the parking areas is probably more in line with the project. Your points are well taken.
All right, well,
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. And also,
Okay.
Steve, I
So-
will look at a nautical fixture for that parking area.
Here we go.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, next on the agenda, 313 Honey Spot Road and Honey Spot Road, lot number 14, review of petition to zoning commission by Vessel Technologies, Inc. for constructing an attainable luxury multifamily building. Just gonna grab my. All right, so I am not sure who is here representing the applicant, but whoever that might be, you have the floor.
Good evening. This is Josh Levy. I'm one of the principals at Vessel Technologies. Thanks for making time to speak with us tonight. I know it's already been a long evening for everybody, so I will try to go through things as expeditiously as possible. I also have on the phone with me Suze King from BL, who is our civil engineer. So she will talk about different aspects of the site design. Before we begin, I wanted to try to provide some background on Vessel and what you're being presented today, specifically looking at some of the things that I heard mentioned as comments or questions during the first presentation. We refer to this as an attainable luxury property. As a point in fact, the board made reference to the state as well as the municipality's desire to reach its 10% threshold. 100% of this property will be deed restricted at 80% AMI, providing affordable housing credit to the town for all 15 units. Additionally, we're working with the municipality on pre-leasing for community residents for purposes of trying to have the most significant community impact we can have for people in the community who are looking for high quality housing. We did refer to this as attainable luxury. One of the reasons we do, call ourselves attainable luxury, to steal a phrase from the retail industry, is because everything in the building is designed to meet luxury standards, but be priced at levels that regular people can afford. So you will find stainless steel appliances, you will find washer dryers and dishwashers and 9-foot ceilings all throughout the building. The building also has many, many unique features associated with it that you may have seen in the application. For instance, it's integrated with our proprietary smart home technology system that we built from the ground up, which provides a lot of different features to residents. Some of those are 24/7 air monitoring and purification, UVC technology throughout the bathrooms to provide sterilization to the bathroom so that we always have clean surfaces. Hearing and visual prompt for people who are hearing and visually impaired, and a lot of energy efficiency aspects of the building itself with respect to being able to promote and have the highest levels of energy efficiency. It also does everything a typical smart home does. All of our materials are healthy materials. They're also all sustainable materials. So you may see reference in the application to the fact that the interior of the building is all antimicrobial and hypoallergenic. We also use a cradle to cradle philosophy, which is the idea that all of our materials have a second or third life associated with them. So trying to enhance the sustainability of the system. We strive to, be at the intersection of health and housing as well, where we provide healthy materials, no off-gassing, no leaching, all low VOC or no VOC materials. And all of the units are, and all the common areas are handicap accessible, or more commonly referred to these days as universal accessibility, so that it is not made to be accessible if you don't need it to be, but can be accessible for anybody who needs it. And actually our units have the ability to even transform for visitors for what we call accessibility mode for purposes of that. We also have solar, we do have a solar array on the roof, which serves all of the common area amenities in terms of the lighting and the elevators, so that there's no load there, and we'll provide coverage for part of the units as well. That's probably a very high level version of what we do, but the goal with everything we do is to create something that's really an extraordinary product that is priced at an affordable level. With that being said, we are what we call a productized and systematized form of housing. So our housing is developed much like your iPhone is developed, or for those of you who use a Samsung or Google phone or something else. So there's a replicability aspect to what we do in terms of the design and structure and MEP and everything else associated with the building, which is what allows us to provide the level of quality that we provide, and also the pricing that we're able to achieve. So I will stop there for fear of boring everybody and sending everybody off on a direction that we don't need to be on, but wanted to just provide some background, and I'm happy to jump in first on the site plan or on the design, whichever is preferable to the board.
Okay,
Excuse me,
thank you,
Jamie.
Excuse me?
Do you want to ask which of the applicants would want to, if they want to share their screen, or if they want me to open the drawings on the town webpage and, as they're speaking?
Josh, you want to respond to that?
Oh, I'm happy to share if that's easier, Smita.
Yes,
I'm happy to do that.
I'll make you the presenter. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Josh, why don't you go ahead? I think I appreciate the philosophical kind of conversation about what you guys do. And I'm sure there'll be some questions and comments about that, but why don't you go through just briefly some of the specifics about the site plan and the building and choice of materials and things like that, so we're all clear, and that'll potentially formulate some more questions from the commissioners.
Absolutely. So Sue, do you want to speak a little bit to the site plan first, and then I can jump in on the architecture and add anything necessary on the site plan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. Okay. It looks like I'm still on mute. Yeah. So the site plan is pretty small footprint. It's do you want to go to there we go. So we have the building as shown, and then it's right adjacent to it in the compact footprint with having the parking adjacent to it. And so we have 15 parking stalls, including an accessible stall. It's typical asphalt. Right now we're showing typical asphalt. We're looking into seeing if there is a permeable type asphalt that would work well in this area. I know that, we all know that with the, snow and whatnot, sand and salt and whatnot get in there. However, they are continually to, coming up with new versions of the permeable pavement to address that. So we're trying to find that, but for right now we have just typical asphalt parking. And then it's just a, concrete pad going into the front entrance here. And there's the drainage is pretty simple on site, that it comes down to the building will tie into a couple of catch basins on site. On this particular location, because the existing conditions are all, it's a pervious site, so therefore we have a 4-arc footprint, a fairly large underground infiltration system to make up for the increase in impervious area. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward of having a bituminous curb around the pavement area with a screening fence. And then if you want to go to the landscape areas out front, will be some low maintenance ornamental grasses. That those are, the grasses that grow, a few feet high, not, just like wild grass. It's the ornamental grasses that grow sort of into like a bush to go along the fence and in that front area to fill in that, fill in the front landscape area. There is a small portion that is within the public right of way, so that will be, the typical low mow grass area. And then around the back of the building will be, a mulched area. I believe some grasses back there as well and off to the side. But for the most part, it's, a fairly, minimized footprint in order to, decrease the impact into the area. There you go. That's a good detail for the ground planting. So that was a quick overview. What questions can I answer?
Yeah, so just to highlight a few of the things that were asked before in terms of the lighting plan, post lighting in the parking lot, intended to light the parking lot is both LED and solar. It is on a post approximately 20 feet high. Traditional curbs here, they're not asphalt curbs, they're bituminous concrete curbs for the site. And probably as you saw, it's a fairly compact site. It's only 100 by approximately 100 by 100. So we're sort of confined by the size of the site in terms of that. And let me see if there's anything else that you had asked for previously. As Sue said, we're investigating how to create a pervious parking lot, either through the use of pavers or through pervious concrete or asphalt, based on what's viable, based on the location of the property and the climate and everything else like that. But the goal is to try to find a way to do that, if at all possible.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to Josh, comment further on the building materials themselves?
Yeah,
and the experience?
Absolutely. So, what you see here in the building is a few different things. I think everybody has this in the packet, but this area here is what's called a Valmex Facade Mesh, made by Miller. It is so it's made by Miller Technologies. They have a lot of different examples of it. The one I had shown in the rendering was this one wrapping, but it's used for a lot of different purposes. The idea is that it's a fairly translucent substance. It allows the transmission of air in and out, but it does block from inclement weather, rain, other things like that. That's coupled with a roof in this area that's a cowl wall roof. The cowl wall roof is a sky roof. It does two things. One, it lets in light. It also allows for the passage of air in and out. It forms a thermal chimney for purposes of creating greater energy efficiency, and allowing for the transfer of air while also protecting from inclement weather. And then the panels that you see over here across the rest of the building, those are Laminati panels. They are an Italian company that makes them. They come in a variety of different colors. I just brought this up on my screen to show everybody sort of the different colors that they come in. You know, we showed, you know, different, we showed one colorization, but we're able to make the building in a variety of, you know, different colors. It can be, you know, a single color, or it could be a multicolor structure. I'll bring up actually a different rendering just so just for purposes of showing what that looks like on a site that we're currently working on in a nearby town. So this is in Shelton, Connecticut. Well, that's not the one. That's the one I want. So this one you'll see has, you know, a red panelization on the ground floor. It then has a white strip running in between, and this is a gray upper. You know, just showing this as a as an example of, you know, the ability to change the panel colors and to incorporate, you know, a multicolor design. Some municipalities that we're working with, Shelton for one, wanted to see that as part of an option for theirs. And, you know, we certainly can, you know, accommodate, you know, both single and, you know, dual color structures for those purposes. What else can I tell you? I think that takes care of most of that. I can go into other aspects of the, you know, the roof or things like that, but I'm happy to pause if there are questions or you know, specific discussion points.
Okay, thanks, Josh. No, I think that was good. I think that will lead to some questions. So we're going to go around the room again. You sat through this in the first one, so I'm going to go John Zabel first. John?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to switch it up.
Oh, do you want me to pick that up?
Yeah, whatever you could keep up, and then if I want something up, I could call it up. Or you probably saw me earlier. I have my desk just littered with all the things. So, John Zabel, member Josh and Suze, thank you for coming to see us this evening, albeit virtual. One thing that struck me right off the bat, and this is a perfect rendering to have up, a lot of our discussions as we were kind of forming this review board was to work on putting buildings onto the frontage, which this does. But the one thing that struck me is it's on the alternate frontage from which I thought it would be on. This is, in fact, on Foch Street, right, that we're looking at the frontage rather than at abutting Honey Spot Road directly. Because a lot of what we envisioned when we started looking at this stuff, especially in neighborhoods like this, was having what we'll call parking in the rear. And while this pseudo does this, again, based on building shape, like I said, I imagined it would be more so this was on the frontage of Honey Spot. And just, I'll go through my list, and then if you could speak to the individual things. One thing that jumped out at me is on the details plan sheet DN1, which I guess this would be a question for Suze, there was shown a fence, which again, in the vicinity of where this building is going, I had imagined a fence, but I did not see it on any of the plan view drawings that were provided. And it provided a white style solid vinyl fence. Suze did mention the street plantings along the frontage. While I appreciate the look of grass, and I think it has a nice aesthetic, I wondered about, because that is such a large area out in front, the way it's currently configured to the road, if there was any consideration to sprucing it up. Again, it appears that the building colors, and we can get into that, I'll leave room for other commissioners, are are quite bland here as depicted, and you did state that they could be changed. Myself envisioning that with some level of mulch all in one color, and then only one type of grass out front. Didn't really do anything to break up the aesthetics of the entire development here. Again, understanding it's a small lot, but still looking for some differences there. A question I had is also this. So this rendering, though, it shows a car abutting the building. So this isn't an exact replica, I would imagine, of what's shown in the plan views, as those only had parking away from the building except for a few spots beyond. So if you could just speak to that, the differences in the two. I saw the transformer was placed in the front of the building. Again, guarding that as much as possible. Again, if there's a potential for reconfiguring where the building is, all the better, so that transformer isn't just stuck out on the street there, to aid in the visual aesthetics from Honey Spot Road, which is a very well-traveled thoroughfare in the town. And that's it, Jamie. Again, it's not a huge property. It's not a huge building with a lot of different details. So I'll let the commissioners, I've held a couple things in abeyance.
Sure.
Go ahead, Josh. You want to respond to any of that? Yep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to interrupt. I apologize. Thank you for those comments. To try to address a few of them, and I'll let Suze also jump in. Your point of Foch versus Honey Spot, interesting. I started out to thinking we were going to front this on Honey Spot. What we were looking at was along Foch in this area across the street are all sort of small multifamily buildings, and Foch being quieter seemed like a better location for the tenants who were going to be living there, as opposed to Honey Spot, which, you know, is as you put it, well traveled and you know, pretty busy, which is why we sort of gravitated towards pulling it back onto Foch and having the parking, you know, sort of going towards Honey Spot, so that the people living on Foch weren't looking predominantly in a parking lot for those purposes. But we certainly could look at other options in terms of that. I'll let Suze talk about the fence types of plants. I think the plan is that there's multiple types of, you know, sort of, as Suze put it, grasses. You know, I know when we were on the phone with our landscape consultant, they had a few different ideas as to, you know, sort of varieties so that it wouldn't look too uniform. You know, so that is, you know, it's something we can, you know, definitely also look at. You know, colors of the building, absolutely. You know, we're sort of happy, quite honestly, to, you know, if there's a consensus on colorization, to defer to everybody. You know, the idea of, you know, what we try to achieve is really something that's a community building, so to speak. And so, you know, we welcome and enjoy the feedback in that respect, so that we can make it, you know, contextual. Transformer, yeah, agreed. I hate, you know, transformers. I don't like when they're seen. And we'll certainly be looking for the most optimal sort of place to put it. I think, as, you know, Suze and Matt had put it, you know, that's sort of a placeholder for where it is in case, you know, that's the only option. But certainly looking to see if we can minimize the transformers' impact on the site and, you know, see it as little as possible. Suze, anything that you want to sort of add here?
Yeah. So we played around with the building location a little bit, and you know, in addition to what Josh was saying about just sort of the kind of noise factor for the tenants. But with the shape of the site and having the angle in front, it made just a little bit awkward with the parking. But definitely something that we can relook at for that. With the fence, that was something that has, as the project has been, as we got a little bit more into the landscaping conversations, that's one of the things that came up. So we'll add that onto the plan set. The frontage plantings, during conversations with the landscape architects are very much into putting on a show. I would say they're a very characteristic. They have a lot of character to them. And one of the things that they were looking at and they were talking about is possibly having like a bluish, their lower grasses, but still the plants or whatever, but adding some color with that as well. So just it'd be pops of color here and there. So there is a way for us to make that more of an exciting area, and the landscape architects would love that opportunity. And so we'll, as a project team, we can work together to make sure that the renderings are up to, in the plans match there. And then with the transformer, it kind of, as the site evolved, we pushed it back, we put it into the front. So as we're looking at the site plan, if we're able to kind of flip that there, we can definitely look into putting that into the back as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's move on.
For clarity, the fence is going to be removed or it is going to be added, and if so, where on the plan view will it be added if required?
So it'd be wrapping around the parking to screen the parking, like a couple of feet off the curb there, so you have a little bit of space for snow on the parking side of it, but it would be maybe 3 feet or so behind the curb line coming around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tom Sharkowitz.
Tom Sharkowitz, board member. I'm finding it difficult to really review this project, and I'll start with this group spent quite a bit of time, and then quite a bit of time on top of that, developing our design guidelines that were specific to the town of Stratford and would really improve the town and where we all live. So I'm a little thrown off by why the vessel drawings, while they respond to the individual parcel on Foch and Honey Spot, it seems more of a drag and drop project that was not designed but rather placed here, and I think that's evident on the drawings you submitted that actually are sealed and stamped in the state of New Jersey, not even the state of Connecticut, as well as the project development you just shared with us of the same exact thing in Shelton. So it seems a bit, I don't know if our design guidelines were considered for this project, but regardless, it behooves us to review it. I think the position of the built environment in relation to Honey Spot Road is the wrong idea. It actually goes against what we always discussed in our design guidelines of keeping parking in the back. But I also do not care for the placement on Foch Street, especially when you have, large bedroom windows right against the street. I think even just for security, that's an issue, but more so for simple privacy, it doesn't create a very successful project in my mind. I also am not happy, not impressed with the landscaping that you've provided. in your landscape plant schedule, you have only 3 trees, which it's a small site, I can understand that. But you also only provide 1 species of ornamental grasses. And, you know, there's an infinite combination of other plants you could have chosen. You know, these grasses, say they all die at once, or some die in between. It really ruins the uniformity of the idea you're going for. There's a lot of options you could have chosen for things that would bloom in different seasons, things that are flowering, things that are evergreen. And I'd really like to see that incorporated into your project here. I also am concerned about the parking again. You know, it seems like there's more paved area than there is building. So it's almost like we're reviewing a parking lot here, which I don't think is a very efficient use of everyone's time. But I'd like to say that the fence proposed seems a bit generic. It seems very plastic. It doesn't relate to the modern building that you've suggested here. And then really what we're left with on Honey Spot Road is a bunch of mulch and a white vinyl fence, which is not going to look attractive in all seasons. However, I am not against the modern idea of building. I work in a very high modern firm right now, and I think it's a welcome move into the future. But the drawings you provided, I think, lack a lot of detail. And actually, the renderings that you showed from your project in Shelton, I think, are infinitely more successful than what you've provided us today. Although I'm sure they're the same building. I think that's all I have for now, but I'd like to hear what other members have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Steve Law.
Yeah, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. I think I have to echo in some ways Commissioner Sarkowitz's general feeling. I had a hard time getting into the party of this, in particular, how it relates to the neighborhood, I think. But I think Commissioner Sarkowitz and Commissioner Zabel hit on a lot of points regarding the site, which I think I echo as well. I think regarding the building, when I first looked at it, my first thoughts were, well, it's too modern. And again, I don't mind the modern, but it's almost too modern. I had some questions, some concerns about the material. And I'll just go through a couple of comments in no specific order or arrangement, but the MEG, I think it's a MEG panel you call it. Do you have that rendering, Josh, you could put up? Or
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
I'm just wondering, it seemed to be not articulated enough. I think you can do maybe adding color would help the overall party of it. It is such a modern building. It's going to be difficult to really enhance and blend in with the neighborhood. I know blending in with the neighborhood is probably not the right term, but the mesh fabric or the mesh material that you talked about on the porch side, is that would those porches be conditioned spaces, or is that outdoor space?
It's not conditioned, it's not outdoor because inclement weather doesn't pass through, but it is open air space. It's not a porch, that's the staircase. There's also an elevator in the building, but it's just an architectural staircase for purposes of providing a second means of ingress and egress.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand the construction and, you know, some of the details. I know modern construction or contemporary construction sometimes can be a lot harder than traditional just because of the way the materials all interact. But what's the construction classification of this building? What's the structure consist of?
Steel. It's a steel structure. It's a panelized modular system that's made out of steel.
Because it's hard. The rendering, although there's probably some artistic liberties taken, I'm having difficulty understanding the. I'd like to maybe see the structure more there. I can't get a sense of what the structure is in terms of those decks. The mechanical space on that first floor under the porch, is that, I don't see it rendered too well in the plans. I don't quite understand. Is that for mechanical equipment?
You're talking about our MEP room?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we have a centralized MEP, what we call an MEP pod. Everything runs into that MEP area. It's not visible from the exterior or from anything. It's an enclosed area.
So it's accessed from the outside, I guess.
The MEP room can be accessed from the inside of hold on one second, let me just blow this up.
So it looks like on the Z301, I think I see it there, but it's not really articulated anyway. It's hard to understand what's going on there. I'll just keep going through some of my comments and then I'll let the other members speak. But what I was hoping for regarding the site was some better connectivity to the alleyway and the streetway to the school property towards the east, I think that is. And so I'm just wondering if there's some more options to develop that side of the property. If the building were to be fronted on Honey Spot and parking was in the back, there would probably be good opportunities to develop that parking and relate it to the neighborhood towards the east. I'm just trying to understand that awning. As Commissioner Sarkowitz said, I think the project that you showed us in Shelton had a better sense of the awning over that front door. With that building line right on the Foch sidewalk, I'm just wondering how that canopy awning sticks out there. Is it shown up in any of the elevations?
Yeah, that does not stick out very much. It's just an overhang for purposes of inclement weather. If you look at
Z301, it shows it's like sticks out like 8 inches maybe.
Yeah, that's about right. You can see it here for purposes of the overhang. And it's meant to just be a cover for people for inclement weather when, coming in and out of the building.
Yeah, it seems to be a little weak in that respect. And then, well, Jamie, that's it. I'll
If you look at V1 also, you can see that that's where the number of the building is, as well as the signage, and then there's, you know, an LED backlighting to that for purposes of, you know, providing downlight over the entry.
Okay, that's all I had, Jamie, at this point.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Okay, Jamie Millward, Chairman. All right, Josh. You know, I'm watching your expression, and you know, this is a tough project review. Let's start with that, because this our kind of guidelines don't necessarily anticipate a project like that. But I'm going to take it from a little different tact, and that's that. Here's what I really appreciate is I was on your website, and I did read about what you guys are trying to do. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, is this in fact this same building? You know, Tom referred to it, you know, accurately perhaps as plunk and place. You're replicating this exact same building on properties that you can find that this building will fit.
That's absolutely 100% correct.
Okay,
the only major difference is the changes to the colorization of the building.
Yeah.
You know, that can be achieved on the exterior, and the building does get wider or shrink depending on the size of the site.
Yeah. Okay. So
and get taller.
Okay. So I guess that I really like the concept of what you guys are trying to do. And I want to start with that. I want to start with that, you know, the positive here, because I think you guys are addressing something that, you know, trying to figure out a way, be creative about a way to build, to provide housing that's not just the same, the projects that we review, projects that you see all over the place, that gives an alternative to a housing program. And I don't know where you're going to fall, what the rent actually be or anything, but I'm guessing this is because it's, you know, modular in that way. It's less expensive to produce, and therefore you can charge less for the rent, all those kinds of things. So I appreciate that's what you have, and that's what you're trying to achieve. And I think it's a worthy, and I think even the mission statement, or somebody, or whoever the CEO was, you know, they had a kind of mission statement. He left his business and got into this. And I think it's very worthy. You know, the fact, you know, look, I can't comment on your business model really, you know, except that I think that obviously you're not going to put 10 of these in the town, exact things in the town of Stratford. You know, maybe you can get one, and you'll do one in Shelton maybe. And maybe that's all you're trying to do. Maybe it's just that little bit. I don't mind at all the modern aspect of this. No, our regulations don't really talk to this kind, you know, this style of architecture, but I think the material choices are interesting. I think, you know, from the translucent roof to the mesh, and it took me a while to understand what was going on, but I was like, well, I wanted to understand what's going on. So I found it interesting, and maybe honestly less so if I know that this is, you know, one of 1,000 or whatever, that is the exact same thing. Maybe, you know, because this as a little piece of sculpture is more interesting than this as a repetitive example of things that are done all over, to me. So, you know, I think that, so let me talk about site specific. The one part of the project that is certainly addressed in our guidelines is how this building addresses the road. So while I understand as a developer and as a person who's doing this to kind of provide a different level of habitation for someone who wouldn't be able to have that before, it's something you have to consider that. But I do think it falls way short in how it addresses Honey Spot Road. You know, that is, you know, this is almost kind of an urban feeling kind of piece that you're creating here, you know, and it feels like it would want to be out there on the road. I feel like that's okay. You're on Howe Avenue in Shelton. I don't know exactly where you are, but I mean, it's a busy road. It's a busy spot. And so why can't this live on the busy spot as well? So I think that's from an overall standpoint, I think that's the biggest failing that I would say to the project, that it doesn't belong in the back of the property, that it needs to address Honey Spot. The parking needs to be flipped to the other side. And you know, I understand that, you know, you don't have the ability to change necessarily your geometry around so much because you're living within a, you know, a set footprint. You know, that's your guys' problem to kind of figure out. And our problem to comment on how we think the site planning was accomplished. So, so let me just, the overall architecture of the outside, I do think, I don't have a suggestion of what colors they are, but I do think that contrasting color scheme here is going to help this project a lot. I think the way you have it rendered, if you bring that, you know, that kind of rendering back up again, you know, it's kind of monochromatic. I don't think, it just doesn't feel like it does justice to what you're trying to achieve when you have, you know, the difference, you know, all this feels very neutral, and it's all just kind of very neutral. And whether you accentuate that mesh panel in some way, you know, I think something else needs to be done there to kind of give this building a little more life, especially if it's going to be out on the road, which is where I think it should be. So I would urge you to consider, you know, colors in all this. You know, I noticed on a site plan, I don't know where your building setbacks are. The only setback line I see on here is on your site plan. I'm on SP1, talks about a parking setback, which you've exceeded. I'm not sure what that line represents, or where your actual building setback lines are. See, there's that on SP1. I don't know if that's SP1, but I don't think it is. That's GD1. If you go to SP1, yeah, see, there's a line parallel to Honey Spot Road that says parking setback. I just don't know. And then I see a building setback line, which you know, appears to be way over. I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure how, you know, is this project requiring variances to your knowledge?
No, it's a text amendment project.
It's a text amendment.
Yeah.
Oh, text amendment project. I see. All right. So you're trying to get them to write a text amendment which would allow you to do this. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we've worked with we've worked with Jay Havinsky, you know, on a text amendment for the site. Otherwise, you know, as you aptly pointed out, under the current structure, wouldn't have met the current zoning of a 100 by 100 site.
Got it. Okay. All right. And that's, you know, your prerogative. And I would, you know, I don't know if moving the building, as we're suggesting, would change the way that text amendment would need to be written or not. But that's, again, that's up to you to figure out. We're a recommending body, but you know, we are going to make some comment to this. You know, and the comments about the landscaping, the fence, all those things, I think I agree with those comments. I think that it falls short there, and I think that's all solved if the building is situated differently on the property. And then you'll be relooking at everything, the parking lot and everything to the back. You know, and let me tell you another thing I appreciate. You know, you know, the sustainability of the project, all the things you talked about, you know, I think are all, you know, also very worthy components of what you're trying to do here. I don't, you know, I don't know. You know, you're finding, I guess, that it's assailable just to have kind of one design that fits all, and I'm wondering if this is successful for you, or to make it more successful, if there may need to be some other variation of this rather than just kind of this one, you know, kind of this one set piece. But that, again, that, you know, that's your business model, and I'm just commenting on what I'm thinking and feeling about this. You know, you talked about the pavement, and I'm just going to comment on that. You know, I think in light of what you're all doing here, it's encouraging to hear you talk about, I mean, permeable pavement, it does exist out there, and but it's, I believe I find it pretty expensive. From a pure aesthetic standpoint, I think it would be nice not to have the black asphalt on this project. The state just did exit 42 off the Parkway with, I got to find out what it is, but they did something different in the paving off exit 42 on the Parkway, and it looks so much better than blacktop. And I'm not sure what they did exactly, but it looks better. So you might want to take a look at that from a pure aesthetic standpoint. Okay, so I guess I think that's all my comment for the time. And I do appreciate what you guys are trying to do. So now we get to the, so is there any further comments from any commissioners before I ask Josh if he's got any further thoughts to put forward? Let me run on real quick. John Zabel, you have?
Yep. So again, having looked at it and thought about it, I agree with all my commissioners, but like I said to Jamie, I think there is a potential place for this. And again, in the context of our design guidelines and fitting in the neighborhood and neighborhood aesthetic, I think pushing this up to Honey Spot, matching the aesthetics of Honey Spot. You guys had provided angular photos of the area and sight lines as you're coming up the street. Definitely fits on Honey Spot Road, because where it is on Foch, it's across the street from 2 family homes, I believe, which are much more New England style architecture as opposed to what you're proposing here. The other question I had is the lighting on the building. I know we talked about that little overhang, and I looked at it on the detail. That's what I was doing, flipping around with my plate size drawings over here. Is that had some uplighting on it, it appeared. Is there any other lighting on the building? And again, if there is lighting on the building, that isn't typical of a residential setting. If there's any sort of down lighting, typically, yeah, people have uplighting on the front of their homes, uplighting to light up landscape architecture. But is there any other lighting on the building? I didn't see any other than that.
No, there's not. You're picking up on it correctly. The only other lighting that there really would be is like any luminescence from the from the mesh area that was coming from the core of the building. But that would be the only other that would really be more ambient than anything, much like a house has ambient lighting associated with it. So,
oh, go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I also didn't see a trash receptacle or anything like that. You have 15. There's 15 units, right? What is the size of each of these units? What's the?
They're all 1-bedroom units.
Okay, they're 1 bedroom, but there will need to be trash. That's part of the whole facility here. Where is that envisioned? And is it screened? Is it actually within the building?
There's so this doesn't show it perfectly, and the final site plan will show it better. But there's a custom structure that is part of this back area where the trash enclosure is, and sized to accommodate the 15 units. That's out of view of both neighbors and things like that, and also provides access for the trucks. So that's there, absolutely.
Yeah, again, I think just my main comment, revisiting it, and it echoes many of Tom's points about bringing in the fence, which isn't of a modern nature. I mean, Jamie and I don't think could say it enough. If you move this up to the street, you take care of a lot of those issues in that back area. Becomes parking and possibly some useful strip of land at the rear of the property. I see that the town still owns a sliver there on the turn for Foch Street, because I know Foch is one of those odd streets that comes in and then turns into the school property there. But again, just to echo that, after hearing everybody, I think we tackle a lot of these issues if it is relocated understanding that's your model, there aren't a lot of modifications that could be made to the building. I mean, absent coloration and segmenting the building that way. Definitely with its more industrial feel, I would have to indicate that I think it definitely belongs on Ernie style. And that's it for me, Jamie. Thank you.
Okay, Tom Sharkowitz.
Tom Sharkowitz, board member. Well, I do applaud the applicant for the noble idea of providing accessible architecture. It's something that I think we all can get behind and really cheer and advocate for in Stratford. I would just like to remind my fellow commissioners that we spent quite a deal of time developing these design guidelines so that buildings would fit to our vision. And I think with a project like this, where it's drag and drop, it's inherently not fitting. And we are forcing our guidelines to fit around the building rather than the building to fit into our guidelines. I think there are a number of fatal flaws with this presentation in terms of the building site and placement, the parking, the lack of landscaping, the screening that is suggested, the utilities that are visible, the trash that is unaccounted for. So this project as presented, I don't think is very successful. And although we have made some points to improve this, I think they are so much so that we are redesigning the project at this point, and it would need to come back through our board if those changes were to be made. Thanks, Jamie.
Steve Law.
Yeah, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Just a couple comments. There is, I do see a trash indicated on the first floor, but it looks like it conflicts with the couple parking spaces there that's shown on your screen there, Josh. So again, that would probably have to be rethought. And the other concern is just the parking lot pole height. I think, did I see 20-foot poles?
That's correct.
Yeah, so again, that's a little bit, if we're trying to, this is a kind of a, it wants to be a sculptural gem of a building. And I think, you know, just bringing down the scale of the light poles would help as well. So that's all I have, Jamie.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, I have no further comments. I think we've beaten it around. So Josh, any further things you'd like to say before we deliberate?
You know, I guess just a couple of things. One, you know, thank you first of all for the comments. You know, I appreciate them. I also do understand the complexity of you know, the job of an architectural review board, and in the face of a company that's trying to create you know, affordability and accessibility to high quality housing by systematizing and productizing. And you know that you know, we do not discount in any way sort of the complexity of those two things together. And you know, this is not a I would say that, you know, we have this conversation, you know, a lot with review boards, and you know, and appreciate the, you know, what needs to go into you know, preserving communities and making them, you know, wonderful, beautiful places for people, and also at the same time creating you know, greater accessibility and affordability and opportunity within the communities. So very appreciative of, you know, just the engagement around that. You know, I think I heard a few things that were, you know, were common throughout the comments. One was the location of the building. You know, we'll certainly, you know, go back and look at that and try to, you know, achieve the the location where you're suggesting along Honey Spot, so that we can look to that. It sounds like there was a lot of discussion around the landscaping and around the colorization. You know, if there's any thoughts around a color palette, I'm happy to, you know, sort of take those back with me to, you know, to put into our thought process as we continue to finalize. You know, if not, you know, we'll certainly, you know, work on our end based on the feedback that was given. You know, the comment that was just made about the pole height, certainly something that, you know, feels, you know, fairly easy for us to look into and try to address there, as well as the, you know, pavement, which is in, you know, keeping with our goals of trying to create, you know, less of an environmental impact, and also, you know, not have not increase the sort of the heat index of areas. And then, you know, the landscaping, looking at, you know, different sort of varieties. We'll certainly go back and look at that. You know, our goal with the landscaping is always to do something that is that looks nice, but is also really durable. My partner and I have been running real estate properties for a little over 20 years. And, you know, what we continue to notice at all of our buildings is that, you know, things that you put in and sort of ornamental and you think are going to hold up really well around buildings end up being where, you know, people throw cigarettes and, you know, have their dogs and other things like that. And they end up being the stuff that gets destroyed. So, you know, part of our goal is to, you know, always look for things that are durable and will look good, you know, long term, so as to, you know, so as not to have sort of a, you know, problems associated with the landscaping. But we'll definitely look at that and look to see how we create a little bit more interest with different varieties and colorizations. So I think that might be it in terms of the, you know, sort of the big picture items. You know, thank you again. I appreciate the engagement and the feedback.
Okay, thanks, Josh. All right, so now, you know, we commissioners need to kind of figure out how to address this project. You know, whether it's going to get a favorable recommendation or not is first and foremost. And then even, you know, and even if we choose to give it a not a favorable recommendation, then I look, we're advisory. It doesn't stop us from making suggestions about how we think the project might be improved, and suggesting that we would like to see the project back in front of us again if those changes were made for our further commentary. So I'm not sure how to get this started. I think, did we lose Tom? I lost his picture. But I think I'd like to start with you, Tom, and about how you're feeling.
Excuse me, Jamie.
Yes.
Can you just ask him to stop sharing the screen so you can see everybody?
Oh, yeah. Josh, can you take off the screen share?
I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. Yeah. Let me see if this works.
There's a stop button, Josh. You just have to press that.
Okay.
Right.
Did I do it?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So, Tom, I'd like you to speak up first. You had strong, you know, valid and strong opinions about this project, you know, knowing that we need to do a yay or nay on the recommendation, and how you feel about how we put this project forward.
Tom Sharkwitz, member.
as much as I like the idea of providing affordable luxury to Stratford, I would be leaning towards an unfavorable recommendation, as the project presented to us did not take into consideration our design guidelines, which is the entire point of our board, to review projects that fit into our design guidelines. However, the proposed changes we made to the project are so significant that it would require a second review if those changes were to be made. Thanks.
Okay. So I generally agree with that as an approach. But before we even start to take any votes or anything, Steve, you want to weigh in on this, please?
Yeah, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. I concur with Tom's comments. I don't think, given all the comments that we went through, that we are in a position to send put together a favorable recommendation. Although, if the applicant were to take all our considerations and kind of come back to us, maybe there would be a better chance of moving it forward.
Okay, thanks, Steve. John, any different thoughts, or are you on the same page here?
No, I'm generally on the same page, and I might add something. I was thinking if I had a note written down here, and I didn't think of it. And again, certainly I echo Tom's sentiments regarding the affordability and the availability. I think a lot of our comments, especially on the exterior aesthetics of the property, play into that. That's part of the theme. Part of owning a home, part of owning something is owning it all. And I think for that reason, the exterior, the comments regarding the exterior, the plantings, I mean, I didn't see any benches or anything. Someplace that, look, I'm sitting in front of my house. I worked hard, I paid, I did that. Just it all comes together from the inside and the outside. So I certainly would echo Tom's comments, but add that in addition, that I think that's an important piece of the ownership piece, is being able to own the whole thing, which includes a lot of the comments regarding exterior that we'd made.
Okay, all right. So that being said, I think how we handled on the first go round. Tom, you want to take a shot of making a motion here?
Sure. Tom Sharkwitz, member. I would like to make a motion for an unfavorable recommendation for this project in regards to it not considering the design guidelines set forth by this board, and the proposed changes, namely the siting of the building along Honey Spot Road, the arrangement of the parking, screening, landscaping, utility site, and trash and mechanical screening, provide such significant changes to the project that it would require a redesign and therefore a second review from this board.
Okay, let me just add to that. I would also like to put in there for the building itself, if they choose to move it around, they come back to us. Because I don't think the massing of the building will change. I'd like to add that they should be considering the color palette of the exterior of the building. So if we, Thomas made a motion, and I've added, is there a second to that motion?
Steve Law, Vice Chairman, I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye or raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so there we have it. Josh, thank you for your time. Seriously, we try and be constructive here. I hope you take it that way. We want great projects for our town. And so, hopefully you can consider some of the things that we have said, and we'd welcome you to come back and review that with us again.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time this evening.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Item number 5, 725, 731, and 771 Barnum Avenue cutoff. Review of petition to Zoning Board of Appeals by Baco 725 LLC, CMB Group LLC, and Marl Properties LLC for constructing exterior access self-storage units. Again, I'm not sure who's taking the lead here, but I'm going to grab my drawings and you guys go ahead.
Okay, evening, Mr.
John,
Chairman.
do
I
you
hope
want
you
to
can hear
be,
me across the room. I'm sorry,
yes,
Sabrina?
Yes,
do you
we
want
can
to
hear
be the
you.
presenter? Shall I make you the presenter?
No, actually, Brian Phillips is going to be the presenter, but we're just going to
Okay.
chat for a minute before we
All right.
get to that. So, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the 3 property owners. And you mentioned the reference properties. I know you've had a long night. We'll do our best to be brief. As you noted, there's an application before the ZBA. It's actually it's sort of an anomaly because it's not for a setback or anything like that. It's actually because the Stratford zoning regulations require that you can only have one principal building per lot. And so that's what we're seeking to amend by adding these other self-storage units. So this application is, I think, frankly, a bit of an anomaly for this commission. Certainly these are structures that we are proposing, but they are, the design is to be as attractive as possible, but as you'll see, they're just also designed based upon the site not to be seen. So it's an anomaly from that perspective as well as procedurally because of the type of variance that we're seeking and being before the Architecture Review Board. My client presently has constructed a really attractive self-storage facility located at 7071 Barnum Avenue cutoff. That was approved in 2017. It's been very successful. Tenants are signing up, and part of that application was a literal massive cleanup of that property. And the Inland Wetland Commission was particularly thrilled by that cleanup. And since then, my client has purchased these other 2 properties at 735 and 725. 735 has an existing furniture and mattress store, and 725 has a small retail building and also housed the former go-kart track. The parcels are unusual that they're very deep. They slope downward away from Barnum Avenue, and they extend long past Long Brook. The general area, I'm sure you're familiar with it. You have Burlington Coat Factory in the area. You have the substation. You have the power lines that are located directly adjacent to us and behind our sites. And we also have a really odd configuration that you can see here on the aerial, which is the property is 725, literally has no curb cut. There's just, because of the change in topography between Barnum Avenue and these 2 properties, the actual curb cut is on 735, and then you have to sort of wind your way down to the 725 property. And 725 is the one with the go-kart track that you can see there on the shots. So the existing facility, and you'll see pictures of that in a moment, as I noticed, is very attractive and is doing well. But that's a typical, fully enclosed, climate-controlled self-storage facility where people can store their extra furniture or clothing or personal items like that. But there is a decided market for self-storage that is accessed from the exterior as well. Same customers may have different things that they want to store, outdoor equipment, things like that. And I think it's sort of interesting that the 2 applications before us were both multifamily projects because that is the quintessential pairing of people downsizing, moving to an apartment, and they need a place to put their things, or you're moving from one location to another and you just have a surplus because you're moving into an apartment and not a house. And so therefore you need an opportunity, you need some place where you can store those extra items, and that's where self-storage fills the bill. So We're going to show you some other topographic maps and some cross sections. And I want you to keep in mind, if you could, that the goal here is to have another type of self-storage use that will be married with the primary self-storage use in a way that is extremely attractive, or as attractive as they can be, but also in a way that literally cannot be seen from Barnum Avenue. The only folks who are going to be seeing these units are going to be those who actually choose to come onto the sites and are customers of my clients. So with that, I want to turn it over to Brian, who can walk you through the site plan and can show you some cut sheets of these types of units.
Thank you, John. My name is Brian Phillips. I'm with Langen Engineering out of New Haven. Just wanted to give a really quick rundown of the site. We're here on Barnum Avenue Cutoff at the intersection of the Metro North Railroad. The site, 725 and 735, are bounded by the Metro North Railroad, a UI substation, wetlands to the south, and the 771 parcel that John was speaking to, which we'll see in the street view, is the newly constructed self-storage building. So the grade change between Barnum Avenue up here, we're at about elevation 30, whereas the site, the proposed site where these buildings will be located, are at elevation 9, so about 20 feet down from Barnum Ave. So just to get into the street view, here actually is the newly constructed self-storage building. I mean, this photo was taken last year, November. And then as you travel down Barnum Ave, there really isn't much of a sight line to the rear of the parcel where these storage units will be located. There's no sidewalk on this side of the road, and as you're traveling down Route 1, you'd really have to be in this exact location to see down. This is where the existing go-kart track was or is today, and then some other storage in this rear. So this is essentially where the self-storage units are proposed. I did prepare somewhat of a profile just to illustrate the change of topography a little bit more. This is our grading and drainage plan. So you can see Barnum Ave up here, approximately elevation 30. We're not proposing to really touch any of the properties in the front of these or the existing buildings in the front of the property. And then in the rear, where you see the existing go-kart in the background, and this is where those vehicles are being stored currently. We have proposed the 6 self-storage units, which will be individual units that you can drive up to, drive aisles in between, and a small stormwater infiltration basin in the rear of the property abutting the wetlands. We do have approved, our wetlands application was approved, so the plans that were submitted are those approved wetlands plans. And then just quickly, I took a section through the center of the property at that location on Barnum Ave where I said, you'd have to be standing directly there to have a sight line to the rear, and you can see that, these units are going to be well below Barnum Ave cutoff. I'm not sure if there's any additional detail that we want to run into as far as the site plan before we get into these photos. But these are just some existing photos further illustrating what we saw on the Google Street View. These are some photos of the newly constructed building, self-storage building. And here are some existing
Brian,
site photos.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. I just want to make clear for the commission that the yellow building that they saw, that's actually an existing veterinarian. So that is not my client's property. It's only the more attractive building to the right.
Correct. And then these are just some photos of our site where these units are being proposed. So, currently it's parking, the existing go-kart, and then in the rear is generally some storage areas currently. Not in the greatest of shapes, but the proposed plan takes over this area and is definitely an improvement. I guess this moves into some of the units that are being proposed. I'm not sure if John, you want to
Yeah, sure.
take over this? I mean, we can scroll through this, but they're pretty typical, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, these are, literally sort of off the shelf sorts of units. You have your choice of a variety of colors. My client would be, I mean, these are depicted in blue and white. We'd be proposing something that would be beige and white to match the existing self-storage facility. I mean, really quite very basic, not very tall, so, as we indicated, and maybe too many times, these are I think about 12 feet tall at most, or 10. And so if there's, I'm sorry?
I think 8 feet.
Okay, so even more so. So if they're sitting 20 feet down off of Barnum Avenue, you'd have to be looking through the two existing buildings to see, the roofs of these buildings. This is sort of a interesting application for you to hear, considering the ones you've heard earlier this evening, because it's frankly, sort of outside of your, I guess, comfort zone in terms of your various expertises in terms of architecture and landscaping, but nonetheless, it's my client's goal is to make this site as attractive as he possibly can. These two properties, as well as the original site, were very badly scarred, very badly taken care of. A lot of illegal and improper dumping that had taken place. He's done a massive cleanup on all the sites, and this is a use that folks in Stratford need, folks everywhere need, and particularly those who are moving into a multifamily building. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, to the extent that you feel that this is within your purview.
Okay, thank you. I think we're gonna go around the room and see what people have to say. Tom Sharkowitz.
Tom Sharkowitz, board member. Just for clarification, the applicant, the way what is proposed is access through the neighboring property.
Right. Yeah. So that's the. Let's try not to get into the legal zoning regulation weeds. But so right, we have 3 properties, and you can. I think Brian's trying to find us one that shows the existing property lines. This one does, and so because you can only have one principal use and one principal building on a lot, one of the things that we're going to be doing is reconfiguring the lot lines such that these drive-up self-storage units will be on the same parcel as the existing self-storage facility, and then the other 2 lots would then stand on their own. I mean, those 2 other parcels will still be fully compliant with your zoning regulations, but Jay and Susmita were very generous with their time, and we sat together for, I don't know, an hour and a half one day, sort of batting this back and forth as to how to tease this, sort of thing apart in terms of, in a manner that made the most sense under your zoning regulations. And this is what we settled upon. And so at the end of the day, we're going to be before this board tonight, obviously, and then the ZBA for simply for the variance for more than one principal building on the lots. And then after that, we don't need any other approvals, any other discretionary approvals from any commission, because the lot line adjustment is all over the counter, and in fact, the use itself is permitted in the zone. So nothing from the zoning commission, nothing from the planning commission.
Okay.
Can I just add to that, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
1 second. So yes, we were looking at the definition for accessory structure, and the way the accessory structure has been defined in our ordinance is that it has to be incidental to a principal structure. And in this case, the way these structures are, it doesn't look like, you're having a shed next to a home. That is an example of an accessory structure. So, arguably some could call these as accessory structures, but, it could also be considered a principal structure on the lot. And the path that the attorney has chosen here is to actually go before Zoning Board of Appeals to request more than one principal structure on a lot.
Right.
Okay.
We tried the accessory structure tacked with Jay. It didn't pass his straight face test, and so rather than stick our hand into the meat grinder, and we decided to go the variance route because we did believe that his interpretation was a valid one.
Okay. But just to reiterate, the applicant, the owner, does not own those two existing buildings that front Barnum.
No, he does. He does. So,
He does.
yes, we own those two existing buildings. Those currently have tenants. I think he has plans to beautify or to improve the facades of both those. And to the extent that that may require us to come back before this board, you may see us. Candidly, we haven't looked at that, whether those improvements would be required, but certainly it would be his goal to not only improve the site sort of environmentally and aesthetically, through the self-storage units, but those buildings as well. But, we just don't have plans for that yet.
Okay. What I would recommend is that you do add some maybe street trees, some, hydrangeas, roses, holly, boxwoods, along what you do own and what's available on Barnum Avenue, just to make up for the fact that we are putting a built environment into this area, although you are cleaning it up, and that's rather noble. And I do think that section, that site section you provided just now, that proved that, there's very little visibility of these units from, anybody walking by or driving by on Barnum Avenue. I think that's extremely helpful to understand, the impact that your project would have. I find it a bit hard to review only because these are prefab units with chosen colors, and it's such an extreme site where you can't actually do a lot more than what you've already proposed. I guess the one recommendation I would put forth would be this chain link fence with slide gate that you have at the entrance to the parking lot. I don't think chain link really makes for a good built environment, especially in the Barnum Avenue section. So if we could maybe replace that with some sort of metal rung or a nicer looking upgraded fence and gate, I think that would really improve the project. And that's all I have for input, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay, John Zabel.
Yep. Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, I was good. Tom had stole my thunder about the fence. Again, there is very limited nature of what we can comment on, considering it is prefab. Some of the examples you showed and some of the color palette was a little loud. So I do have to say I'm pleased with a more subtle tone. And again, not so much because it matches your other building, because there's an obvious distinction between the two locations, but just that it'll blend in more to the wetland type environment, I think, as Brian had articulated, that is located behind your facility, because assumedly that pockets of that may be visible even with the way the buildings are staggered. I don't think the question regarding access was completely answered. My understanding is it'll be both accessible from behind your existing storage building or Barnum cut off directly. So you can go either way. Is that correct?
Yep. The primary access will be from behind the existing self-storage facility.
Okay. But I noticed there's
because frankly, if you're a customer of these drive-up units, the office, where you go and either make your payment or lease the space would be in that building. So obviously there's the preference that my client would be controlling whoever would be going back into that location, and so the primary access is going to be through the existing facility.
Now, where there are gates, I think, and they are shown up near the double arrows, the most, I guess that would be west. Is that west, north? The most northern section? Yes, up in there. Is that that's the gated entrance, is it not?
Hey, Brian, maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, this is also a gated entry. We're essentially closing off this area so that it is secured.
Yeah. So then there's a gated entrance from behind the other facility as well, where the red arrow is. I didn't see that on the plan.
Yeah. So these plans slightly precede the variance, but we do show in a dashed line the connection.
Yeah, I'm wondering about a fence though there. I see the curbing and the curb cut and the pathways to get to each storage unit, but I didn't see a fence there but there will be a fence there as well, a gate and a fence.
This is Mark Bildner from Morrow Properties. There is an existing automated gate that is on the side, I guess it would be the east side of the existing building as you come down the driveway. And so the customer, the customer will key punch in their code and the gate will open there, and that's how they'll act.
All right, thank you, Mark. It wasn't clear there. I guess I didn't realize there were security features on that building as well to get into the lot.
Yes, sir.
I'd echo what Tom had said. Anywhere, I know there's probably going to be limited grass areas or limited curb cuts, but even at the entry there, this other entry with the gate, just anything you could do to spruce it up. Again, in terms of design, we're always thinking about what looks great from the street. And yes, while that's important for all of us as citizens and residents of the town and passersby, that's important. But also, I think for your customers visiting the facility, that yeah, I'm going to a box out in the middle of a paved parking area, but anything to spruce it up certainly and blend in with that natural color palette that you guys have created, I think would go a long way. The one question I had is, I'm not overly familiar with these type units. Is there dumpsters, say a individual who's renting space in one of these units is like, you know what, I don't want this lawnmower anymore, I'm tossing it. Is there ability for them to do that on site? And if so, where is that located?
No, typically we don't provide dumpsters for the customers. We really want them to take their garbage with them.
Okay. All right. That was just one thing I thought of. I said, okay, not everyone is, okay, I'm done with my unit. I got to get rid of some stuff.
Otherwise, we're in the garbage business, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would imagine. We used to watch that show where the people wouldn't come pick up their stuff out west. So I had to bring that up. Okay. Again, I think, absent any recommendations we can make out in front of those other two buildings, which I guess to Smitha, that's not within our purview because it's not an area that's subject to this application.
What other things are you talking about?
Well, I mean, just about, there is that large right of way, just all grass out in front. Again, understanding those other two buildings are currently inhabited by tenants, just sprucing up the overall aesthetic of that. We got quite a view from Brian's drive-by using the Google Maps. I mean, there's dumpsters out on the frontage. There's just grass areas along the frontage. Anything that could spruce that up to aid in the aesthetics of this whole plan, I think I would certainly be in favor of.
I think if I'm to look at this, they are talking about 3 parcels and anything on those 3 parcels. And site improvements are the purview of Architectural Review Board.
Yeah, so
you're well within your limits to say the site has to be improved because it has visual impacts.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And I think that drive-by from Brian and to Attorney Nuff's point, I mean, you got a really nice looking self-storage building over there, a unowned property in the middle, and then you come to this side, you know what I mean, which is owned by your client, as you indicated. Just something to spruce that up as well along the frontage and make it a little more inviting. I know we're talking about storage units, but again, just the overall aesthetics to help on Barnum Ave extension there. And that's all I've got.
Yeah, we're looking at the, I'm sorry, Mark Fieldner again. We're looking at relocating the dumpsters or enclosing them so that they're not visible, and also working with the bedding tenant to modernize and improve their existing signage, which you know, could use a little help.
Great, much appreciated.
Okay, Steve Law, comments?
Yes, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Again, I think this is another tough one for us to review. I don't know how much, you know, it's not really in our bailiwick or our purview. So I have limited comments, but it's good to hear that there's some effort in addressing some of the building, some of the facades, and some of the amenities out front. We'd love to clean up that animal hospital and make that a little bit more attractive. If that was,
we don't own that one.
Oh, that's not the one. Oh, okay.
No.
We'd like that to be cleaned up too.
So there are three parcels. So there's.
Yeah, so it's the one to the far left that's sort of shaded a dark gray, and then the veterinarian is the one in the middle that doesn't have a building depicted on it, and then the other 2 are to the right.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, this is a really difficult site, and candidly, other than self-storage, I can't imagine what else could go there. So really, it's the perfect marriage of the use and the site, and really making it productive. Whereas it would not otherwise be productive, other than maybe a go-kart track. So and you just probably know, you know, most of Mark's customers are going to be homeowners. You know, both husbands and wives. You know, a lot of self-storage customers are women who are, you know, and they want to be in the safe, as we all do, in a safe and attractive location. So, and that's what Mark is trying to do with all of his facilities.
Yeah, understood. So just to echo the comments on that on the chain link fence, is that going to be we'll have some kind of electronic mechanism or a keypad that'll open that when a customer comes in?
We'll actually, and we can, as you indicated, we can change that from a chain link into something, you know, we can upgrade that certainly. And yes, that will be automatically operated.
Yeah. And my only other comment was on the impervious coverage. It looks like you're just getting in under the maximum. Is that a variance that you're going for, or is it?
No. We're good on that. The only variance is more than one building for a principal use.
Yep. So as Commissioner Zabel and Sarkowitz mentioned, if there's any way to green up the spaces around those buildings, that would be beneficial.
Got it.
That's all I have, Jamie.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, Jamie Millward, Chair. Well, I agree that this is a tough one to evaluate. I can agree with that. But I'm gonna go not very consistent with my fellow commission members. And look, I have lived here my entire life. There are two main roads through the town of Stratford. The two roads that, as an architectural review board, you would think, okay, you guys better watch out for those roads. It's Main Street and it's Route 1. So Route 1, before 95, for anything, that's how everyone traveled through all the towns. You know, we all know, right? It goes up through all the towns. And that's kind of the main thoroughfare. And so I've driven down Barnum Avenue and I have looked down and seen the go-kart track. So you can clearly see where these buildings are going to be because I drive by and see those go-karts every time I go by there. And so maybe this is the only use that could ever go there. But honestly, I cannot in good conscience say that I favor this in any way, because we are taking, you know, the spot that, you know, is one of the two main drags in this town, and we're going to plop some storage containers on it that you will see from from Barnum Ave. By the way, you will see from the train, and you know, you could build, if you wanted to spend more money, you could build your own, maybe really attractive looking ones, and there would be a different story, maybe, although I still can't get really past what's happening here. But it's just me that I know you're going to say that's somehow out of my territory, but I'm looking at the plan of conservation and development, which we also are responsible for kind of looking at, and that's part of what we discussed about. And, you know, Barnum Avenue was thought to be a place that the town of Stratford should be looking to improve the overall aesthetics of. And I just, you know,
Jamie,
I understand. Yes, Smita, go ahead.
I think you should base your comments purely on the aesthetics of the use and not the use itself. And even if I know that the POCD recommends something else, but if you have a problem with aesthetics, please just state it based on aesthetics of that use.
Thank you, Susmita. But I mean, like I said,
it might land us in trouble.
It's you know, the aesthetics of a bunch of storage units are not good. Of a bunch of prefab storage units. And that's why I said, if you were going to build your own little storage units and make them cute or something and make them nice looking, something to look nice, I might think differently about this. So Mark, I appreciate you're trying to take advantage of the property you have here, but I don't think this is not, in my opinion, an architecturally pleasing project on the main drag through the town of Stratford. And so I know, look, I don't know you. I'm not trying to be anything but react exactly how, as an architect and as someone who's lived in this town his entire life, and that's how I feel. And if I wasn't on this board, and all of a sudden this popped up, I would be thinking, really? That's what we have? That's what we're doing? And that's what it looks like? So that's my, there's no other comment than that. You know, I'm not going to say like, oh, we'll make a pitch roof or make, you know, no, that's not the point of this. You know, it's different from the other commissioners have articulated, and but that's how I feel. So I don't need to say anything more than that.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, when we did the original building, you know, we had, you know, lots of talks with staff and obviously with the zoning commission. I mean, at the end of the day, Mark's existing building is easily the most attractive building in that stretch. There is no question. It's the most attractive building in that stretch, particularly compared to what was there previously. So, I mean, I would tell you, all the other facilities and all the other towns where, you know, I've worked with Mark and Mark has worked, you know, on his own. I mean, he's been hailed because of the sites that he has selected and what he's done with them. And I think he's done that here. I understand and appreciate your passion, frankly. But I think Mark shares your concern about making the site as attractive as possible. It's just, you know, these units are what they are. That property is what it is. It is located next to a substation with high tension wires nearby. It is runs over the railroad tracks. It's a really difficult site. And it's a not easy portion of the town, given the infrastructure that exists, and frankly some of the other uses in close proximity. So I think having Mark as a corporate citizen is one of the best things that can happen to this stretch of Barnum Avenue, because of what he's doing with these, on the original site, what he's going to be doing with the facades to the existing buildings, and then the cleanup that he's going to be doing on this site. Yes, the trade-off is 6 small one-story buildings that will be difficult to see, but candidly, I think that's a really fair trade-off. I think the town is doing pretty well.
Fair enough. I understand. Okay, so are there any further comments from any of the commissioners at all? Tom Sharkowitz.
Tom Sharkowitz, board member. Jamie, I'll agree with you that the architectural merits of a storage unit are non-existent. However, I think if we were reviewing any changes to those other 2 front parcels, this would be a very different discussion. We'd have a lot more to talk about, a lot more to improve, and a lot more to enhance Barnum Avenue. However, I'm just actually looking at the colors chosen for the storage units, and if we really truly want to make these go away, I don't think the color choices are correct. Namely the royal blue. I don't think that's the right choice for here. What I would like to see for the storage unit siding would be the sandstone. For the doors, the brilliant white, and for the roof, that colony green. And these are all sort of natural muted colors that will help minimize the visual impact from the street.
Right, and I'm sorry, Mr. Sarkos, I indicated earlier that the blue is just on the cut sheet, but Mark's intent is to have it, be beige and white. The green roof is actually a pretty good idea, so certainly take that under advisement. But our goal was to match the existing building with beiges and whites. So.
Okay, thank you. Whatever you can do to, screen it, make it go away, that would be great. Thanks.
Any other comments, Smitha?
Yes, Jamie, if you have concerns regarding its impacts to the right of way, you have an opportunity here, I think, to propose some site improvements, landscape buffering, or some kind of visual, improvements that would offset the impacts. If you don't think it fits the bill of architecturally sound structure, like it doesn't meet the guidelines, you could state why for the record and vote unfavorably. So those are the 2 choices you have, whatever you choose to do. But we, unfortunately, as much as I would love for you to bring the consistency of POCD here, and in fact, it's a TOD site, we cannot be discussing that as an ARB regarding the use and how it fits with the overall area.
Okay, I didn't necessarily comment on the use specifically. So any other comments from board members? Okay, so we need to have a motion put forth. Tom Sharkwood.
I'd like to put forth a motion of a favorable recommendation for this project, considering that the chain link fence and gate will be upgraded to a nicer metal option. The colors will be muted as much as possible to blend in with the background. And the front 2 parcels will be cleaned up as much as possible, dumpsters hidden or removed, landscaping cleaned up, and greenery added.
Are there any other things any of the commissioners would like to add to that motion? Steve, John, no? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
John Bell, board member, I will second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Nay. So that passes 3-1.
I think Steve raised his hand for nay. Did you raise for nay or yay?
Nay.
I'm sorry.
Steve Law, nay.
So 2 yay, 2 nay, and motion failed, right?
Correct.
Because we need 3 votes.
Correct. So Smitha, so that was a vote for a, so what happens? We don't, does that mean
So
it's an
it just does
unfavorable
not get
recommendation?
voted favorably. That's all.
What's that?
It just means that it is not voted favorably. You don't have enough votes to pass the motion.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Well,
Thank you, guys. John Zabel?
Just a point of order, I guess, then, because this may be the first time this happens. So Smita, again, John Zabel member, what is the correspondence then to the zoning commission, or excuse me, in this case, the zoning board of appeals relative to this application? Again, we always send a correspondence to them, or do we just outline how the vote went and still what the recommendations were?
So I would write in the letter that a motion was made on, whatever Tom has outlined, and but the motion failed because of a lack of, the votes required to pass the motion, and just state in the letter whatever Tom just said and communicated with to the zoning board of appeals. I think they would need a supermajority vote there. I have to check to bypass BZA.
Sure. I just wanted to, as a point of order, I just wanted to make sure our comments were not lost in relaying the results.
Sure.
I would tell them anyway, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah, I would too, and I think that, Smita, you and I had talked about this, that your letter can say, if the, or no, maybe Jay had mentioned this to me, that if the variance is granted, then we would recommend these, because really what we're recommending has nothing to do with them receiving the variance. We're not commenting on multiple buildings on the property. So if they receive their variance, then these are the recommendations that we would make.
Well, I think in this case, Jamie, it would have been different if you all voted yes, but in this case, it's straightforward. You voted no, so I would say, should it be recommended or not recommended? The ARB at least views this unfavorably because of these reasons, and they had concerns. They discussed at length about improving the site, but there was not enough votes to pass the,
Well, I think you should talk to Jay further about that then, because look, if these guys get the variance, I certainly would want the comments that Tom and John have articulated to become something that can go forward with the project. I don't think those have to disappear simply because we didn't vote in favor of the project. But I'm not sure legally how that worked. But I would hope that there'd be a way that our commentary could still.
Chairman, you know what? I mean, my client has given you his word that he's going to take those under advisement, and particularly with the fence, he's going to do that. You have his word. You have my word.
I understand, and I appreciate that. I really do. But I think now we're just talking about, kind of, if this ever happens again, kind of how this should work going forward, and if we're going to make, recommendations. I mean, look, we just, not to a Board of Appeals, but the previous application didn't get a favorable response either. We did make commentary on it. It doesn't mean that the project might not happen. And then, I think the comments that were made are still legitimate and would still want to be, part of the project going forward. I don't know how that is supposed to work procedurally, but
Well, Jamie, in that case, you should have approved with conditions. By you not approving it at all, you have taken off any, weightage to those comments. It was voted unfavorably and the motion did not pass. So now we can go back and say half of the motion still holds true, but the other half doesn't hold true. And that's the problem there. I mean, generally speaking, yes, I can state in the, letter of recommendation that there was a discussion and 2 commissioners expressed concerns regarding site improvements, and they stated, to improve the site conditions, but the motion failed. And they're, they have to decide whether they would want to take those concerns of those 2 commissioners if they're voting yes and move them forward or not. But as a board together, you have decided not to give a favorable recommendation.
I hear what you're saying. It seems like there should be another way to do this. And because then really what you're saying is we need to give every project a favorable recommendation. And
Not really. You gave an unfavorable recommendation to the previous project.
But I know, but we had conditions. We talked about things for the other project, and we still voted not favorable. That doesn't mean that project still might happen, And then like I said, I don't know procedurally how this can work, but I just feel like there's got to be
You know what? I think this is fairly straightforward. So this commission makes an advisory opinion, and your advice to the zoning board of appeals is 2 members voted to give a positive referral with the following conditions. 2 members voted not to give a favorable review. I mean, that's your advice to the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
2 in favor with certain changes and 2 not in favor. That's, I mean, if this were a board where we actually needed a decision, then the motion would fail. But I mean, the fact that this is an advisory opinion, a 2-2 vote is frankly a 2-2 vote, and that's the advice to the ZBA.
I don't disagree with you, Attorney. Because we're advisory, I'm just thinking about globally in another project. I would hate to see our, comments we make just be put to the side because we didn't give a positive response. So it should be that this can be something we're going to have to discuss. We're not going to decide this or figure this out right now. So it's something we'll have to discuss going forward, and perhaps consult with Jay on this as well.
I think you should consult with the town attorney too on this. I mean, John Nuff is a land use attorney as well, and all I can say is we can't have from both sides. Like, we can either say yes or no. We can't say I don't like what you're putting on the site, but if you were really going to get approved, we would make sure you do all this. You have to be affirmative on what direction you want the committee to give a recommendation to the BZA, and that's what matters here. But I understand your concerns that if it was approved, you would still want at the bare minimum to see some site improvements. So I'm going to talk to the town attorney too to see if there is a way we can figure this out.
Yes, that's all we can do at this point. All right.
Yeah.
Been a long night, so thank you everybody for your time and patience. And I think that we're all set, and this meeting, oh wait, do I have something legally to do? What do I have to do?
You need a motion to
Thank you.
adjourn.
I'm tired. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
John Zabel, is there a second?
Second, Steve Law.
Steve Law, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.